switches, the levers, the knobs, the gears, the willies, the willies, the wheels and pulleys. And if you put those two things together, you get some willies, I guess. I don't know. The point here is your boy's in charge of everything. So you're just gonna have to roll with me. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Howdy, y'all. Great to have you. Happy Tuesday. And more importantly, Happy New Year to all of you. Well, New Year's Eve. I know it's not technically the New Year yet, but it is. It's New Year's Eve. It is spectacular to have you here. I hope that you are having a phenomenal Tuesday. I know it's early. I don't care. It's time to get up. It's time to have some fun. It's time to get loud. And I'm glad that you are all here. At least the early crew. The early crew. The folks that are up and at it this early in the morning. I'm glad you're here. All right. We have got a lot to get to. We have got a lot to talk about. We have a lot of things that we have got to chat about. We are going to talk, obviously, today quite a bit. We are going to talk quite a bit about the college football playoffs, because game one of round number 2 is today. Game one of round number 2 is underway in just a few hours from now. And I am quite excited about that, to be honest with you. I think that for us here on the show, it is a big deal, the college football playoffs. Not just because we're going to crown a national champion, and obviously we are. I think it's a big deal because in the first year, you are more likely to have changes. You are more likely to have people who decide, I don't like this, or I do like that, or I want to tinker with this, or I want to change that. And what happens with all of that is going to dictate what the future in college football looks like. As a matter of fact, yesterday, we already found out that there is a major proposed change coming down the pipe. And I'm intrigued to see. First off, I'm intrigued to get y'all's thoughts on it. I'm intrigued to get y'all's thoughts on them, and I'm intrigued to hear what you guys think about this proposed possible change. And I want to get to that a little bit later on in the show, because there is the thought already that people are unhappy with the structure as it was put into place. And the possible change that's been discussed is that conference champions may not get the top 4 seeds anymore. Conference campeones may not get the top 4 seeds. They may move on and go ahead and decide that they are going to go with a scenario where the bracket is determined by the seeding. Now, that is to say, the conference champs would still get in. So you'd still have the top 5 conference champions, and you would still have 7 at-large teams. But the conference champs would not automatically get seeds 1, 2, 3, and 4. So basically, the final rankings would determine how the seeds look, right? So in a year in which the college football playoff rankings ended with the Oregon Ducks as 1 and Big Ten champs, with the Georgia Bulldogs as 2 and SEC champs, with Texas as 3 but SEC runners-up, Penn State 4 as the Big Ten runners-up. If that was to play out that way, then you would end up in a spot where those 4 in the final college football playoff rankings, those 4 teams would end up with the bye, and nobody else would be guaranteed anything. So that to me is kind of interesting, to be honest with you. it's kind of interesting to me. The way that it's set up, obviously, in the bracket was that the teams on the bye were Boise State, Georgia, Oregon, and Arizona State. So the Big Ten champ caught a bye. The Big 12 champ caught a bye. The Mountain West Conference champ caught a bye, and the SEC champ caught a bye. But it would not necessarily have set up that way. Boise State would have still been in as the Mountain West Conference champ, but Boise State would have gone in not as a team with a bye. In fact, Boise State would have gone in as a team that had to go on the road in round number 1. So Oregon would have caught a bye as the Big Ten champ. Georgia catches a bye as the SEC champ. Texas would have caught a bye as the SEC's runner-up. Penn State would have caught a bye as the Big Ten runner-up. You would have had Notre Dame, who finished 5th. And by the way, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're probably a huge fan of this concept, right? You're a big fan of this concept, and you're a big fan of this concept. Why? You're a big fan of this concept because of the fact that this is the only way Notre Dame will ever earn a bye. You're a big fan of this concept because this is a way to get yourself that bye. This is a way that you would be able to host the game in South Bend, Indiana, because in the old method where the top 4 ranked conference champs caught a bye, obviously Notre Dame not being in a conference can't be a conference champion. Notre Dame not being in a conference and unable to win a conference championship would create a world where they can't be the conference champs. So I'm intrigued to see what this layout feels like. To me, I can see the benefits of both sides. On one hand, I absolutely do think that it is a favor to the major conferences, right? I mean, if we look at it this way, Matt Kraft said, Jesus, that sounds atrocious. My solution is better. Matt Kraft, do me a favor. Remind me what I know you've put it in the chat a couple times, but throw it in there one more time and remind me what it was. Because I'm here to talk about. I'm going to be honest with you. It's New Year's Eve. All right. I'm looking forward to going home after this show, spending the day doing nothing with the wife. Got a little work gig that I got to knock out tonight. And then it's just going to be champagne into the evening. Okay. So I'm here for whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to talk about, I'm here for it. But here's what would have happened this year if this was in play. What would have happened this year if this was in play is that the SEC would have had 2 byes and the Big Ten would have had 2 byes. That's what would have worked out. You'd have had Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana hosting. You would have had Boise State, SMU, who do we leave? Arizona State. That would have been on the road. So the bracket would have shown Clemson as the ACC champ, obviously. You'd have had Clemson checked in. So Clemson would not have had anything change other than instead of going to 5 seed Texas in round 1, you would have gone to 5 seed Notre Dame in round number 1. Boise State would not have caught a bye in round number 1. Boise State would have checked in at that would have put them at number 9 because we're seeding via seeds at this point. Boise State would have ended up at number 9. Boise State would have ended up going on the road to Ohio State in round 1. You would have had Tennessee hosting Indiana, which, okay, actually, I'm kind of interested. That game might have been pretty interesting if we're keeping it a buck. I can see the folks that are fans of it and why you would be a fan of that concept. You would be a fan of that concept, I think, primarily because it would feel in that spot like you are giving a reward to teams that play better schedules, play tougher schedules, to teams that maybe are in a conference where there are 3 or 4 national championship contenders. So winning that conference ain't all that easy. And you would still be, with conference champs, still getting a nod, but just not necessarily the bye. You have created in that moment with this plan, if it was to come through, you would have created a spot here where winners of lesser conferences are rewarded with a bid, but they are rewarded with a bid that does not guarantee them an easier road to the playoffs. Boise State's road to the playoffs by winning the Mountain West is an easier path to the playoff than, say, Texas, even though Texas got to host in round one. It's an easier path to the playoff to win the Mountain West than, say, Ohio State, even though they got to host, than Penn State, even though they got to host, than Notre Dame, even though they got to host. Because Boise State not only got to sit down the first round, but Boise State's playing Penn State coming off of a game that was, 9 days earlier, 10 days earlier, whatever it is. Now, that's, I mean, honestly, it's not all that much more impressive, but that's really and primarily only because at that point, you've got a situation where Penn State played a game that was not all that difficult for them in round number one. Penn State got SMU. SMU was just not ready. SMU was just not ready. So it's not exactly the most beat up Penn State, but it is still a Penn State that had to play. Whereas, Boise State was able to be locked in and getting their bowl prep ready a week earlier. Penn State was already locked in on whoever they were going to get. They had a week to get ready for them after they found out their opponent. This is not like Penn State that went through the meat grinder. In fact, none of the teams moving on went through a meat grinder. None of them had a mother trucker of a round one. And I think that is not going to be the case every year. It just happened to be the case in year number one. I don't think it's going to be that way every year. But I do think I can understand, I can see why it is and why it would be that you would want this system. On the flip side, it does kind of feel like a favor, like a nod to the SEC, to the Big Ten, maybe a couple of conferences that aren't all that excited with the way that the seating shook out, right? I mean, if you're, say, I don't know if Ohio State's the right example. They did lose two, and one of them was to an unranked team. So I don't know how much room they have to gripe. But I look at, is Texas the right team to look at? Texas lost 2 games. They lost one regular season game to Georgia. They lost again to Georgia in the SEC title game. They got blown out in the regular season. They lost a close game in the SEC title game. If you're Texas, even if you got to host, you're sitting there looking and going, wait a minute, we have to play a first-round game, but Boise State doesn't. We have to play a first-round game, but Arizona State doesn't. Is that what I'm supposed to be looking at here? Is that what I'm supposed to be okay with? The Sun Devils were also 11-2. They had a loss to Texas Tech. They had a loss to Cincinnati. Am I supposed to be looking at that and just be okay with it? Is that what's supposed to shake out? I don't know. So I can see where this conversation came from, right? I can see where this conversation came from, but I would also point out that I can also see why it is that some of these schools, some of these groups believe that this is a nod. This is a favor to the big conferences. The thought is here, you have just made it easier for a team not to win the SEC, for a team not to win the Big Ten, and yet, based on favorable rankings, still get a bye and overlook teams that end up winning conferences. But again, the conversation we have talked about from the beginning is this is what college football is, right? It is an oligarchy that is run by those who have the gold. I'm going to be the pessimistic uncle here for just a minute. Kids, if you're out there listening, understand sometimes the world's not fair, as my old man used to say. Sometimes life ain't fair. And one of those things that you're going to realize is that the golden rule is not treat others as you wish to be treated. In an ideal world, that's absolutely the golden rule. In the real world, the golden rule is he who hath it, make the rules. He who hath the gold, make the rules. That's the golden rule. And this feels to me like, and again, I'm not even sure I have a problem with it, to be honest with you. I don't think I have all that. I haven't decided yet because we got this conversation yesterday from Brett McMurphy. McMurphy said this conversation has officially flared up. I haven't really gotten the opportunity. I thought about it a little bit last night. I thought a little bit about what was happening last night, and I came up with the conclusion that I don't have a conclusion yet. Like I said, on one hand, I absolutely think that this is a scenario where the two conferences that have the power, the Big Ten and the SEC, said, you know what, we're not happy with who caught buys when our guys didn't. And we want a system where we're going to get that buy. And that's what this is. On the flip side, I do think that while we should reward results, I think we should reward strength of schedule as well. I think these are both important things that we pay attention to. And this feels like kind of a way to reward those who have a tougher strength of schedule. But we'll find out. All right, we're going to talk more about this as the show rolls on. Before we take a break, let me tell you about upcoming Bourbon and Bacon Fest. If you can smell the smoky, salty, delicious aroma of bacon and those beautiful caramel and vanilla notes in the nose of your favorite bourbon, then this event is for you. Join us downtown at the Foundry at Judson Mill on Friday, January 17th for an evening of delicious bites of bourbon and bites of bacon and samples of bourbon. Distilleries from all over the country will pour their best spirits while ticket holders taste porky treats from their favorite local restaurants. You can get your tickets today by going to bourbonandbaconfest.com, bourbonandbaconfest.com. We have general admission, VIP, and designated driver tickets for you as well. We'll have live music, we'll have food and games, and it all goes to supporting a wonderful, wonderful charity, Carolina Adaptive Golf, that does a phenomenal job around the upstate. The Bourbon and Bacon Fest, Friday, January 17th. Go get your tickets right now at bourbonandbaconfest.com. We're back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, good morning, dudes and dudettes. Thanks for being here. I'm going to warn you in advance that I'm going to come back to what you said there in a second, Matt Kraft. Warning in advance, I'm going to have to step away and take a handful more breaks today than I usually do because I am running the show by myself. You guys don't have commercials coming through, correct? I hope not. All right, I'm going to check back in just a minute. Stay right there for me. All right, dudes. Thanks for hanging in there for me. Got a lot I get to keep an eye on today, so I appreciate the patience, man. Also, we changed our text messaging system, and I got to figure out how to work it. Coming up on the show today, I've got a couple of guests for you. At 8:40 this morning, normally he joins us on Wednesdays, but we're not here tomorrow. So the legendary Denton Day from SiriusXM, he is the host of College Football Overtime on SiriusXM. Denton Day is going to come by at 8:40 this a.m. and talk some college football with us. We'll break down tonight's playoff game as Penn State will take on Boise State in round number 2. And then we will talk about tomorrow's 3 games in the college football playoffs. We will have at 9:15 this a.m. Pat Boyle. You have heard his voice on this station many, many times. Patty B is one of the best NFL talkers in the game. Pat Boyle hosts on the BetQL network. As a matter of fact, he and I did a show not too long ago together on the BetQL network. Pat Boyle also hosts on the Infinity Sports Network and SiriusXM as well. He talks NFL for both of those outlets, so we'll have Pat Boyle joining us coming up this morning at 9:20. Denton Day at 8:40. 2 of my favorite sports talkers in the game. We'll have both of those young men jumping on the show to talk some footy with us this a.m. By the way, the stream is up and running this morning. It is only my beautiful face that you are spending time with this a.m. So if you are, if you're into that and you want to chat with us, then now's a wonderful time to join us on our live stream. You can do so at facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, or the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I will be live with you all 4 hours this a.m. It is just me. I've got the stream open right now, and I'm looking for your thoughts and commentary on it. My man Trey just popped by and said, "What kind of jersey?" I broke out some clean threads today. Today's jersey, the day, is actually the jersey the new year. This that I am rocking right now on the stream. Again, facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, the Rob Brown Show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. This jersey, Trey, since you were kind enough to ask, this jersey is the City Connect jersey edition of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. This is their one night only New Year's Eve sweater that they will be wearing tonight. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend tonight. I've got a bit of a work function I've got to knock out, so I won't be there this evening, which breaks my heart, but it is what it is. Going to be a spectacular night over at Bon Secours Wellness Arena tonight. They have a pregame party on the plaza at 4 p.m. They'll have games. They'll have a DJ out there spinning tunes. It's going to be spectacular. And then they have got a hockey game that will see the puck drop at 6 p.m. And here's my favorite part. This jersey that I am wearing right now, the first 1,000 kids in attendance at the pregame party on the plaza tonight at 4 p.m., the first 1,000 kids in attendance are getting one of these jerseys. Now, it won't be super sweet, customized with the name and number on the back like mine. All right, that's limited edition. But the first 1,000 kids at the pregame party on the plaza tonight at 4 p.m. outside of the Bon Secours Wellness Arena will get one of these jerseys. And then after the game, because it's not New Year's Eve without fireworks, you know that, there'll be a fireworks display on the ice. They do a whole fireworks display on the ice after the game tonight, which is going to be super legit. Shout out to my man Chris Miller popping by. He, of course, is the voice of the Carolina Gamecocks pre- and post-game show and friend of the show. Hey, Chris, if you're bored and you want to come on the show, bud, let me know. You want to pop on for a few minutes? You want to talk some football with me? Because, I'm rolling solo today. I don't need it, but I'll always take having the golden seductive tones of one Chris Miller on the show. Jump on. Why not? Let's have some fun. All right, we're talking college football today. as obviously, as we mentioned, our playoff games will get back underway this evening. By the way, for those of you that asked, because somebody did just ask me a second ago, the text line. We are going through our changes with the text line. We told you that we are going to be starting in the new year. We are going to have our new text line set up. And with the new text line, the phone line, you're going to go down to one contact in your phone, because the phone line, the call-in number, and the text line number are going to be the same number. Now, I have been informed that switch has already taken place. I have been informed that switch has taken place. However, and unfortunately, I have not been yet told how to switch over and make that show up on my computer. So I'm working. Just know I'm working on that. All right. I got the text out early this AM. I got the folks out there working on it, because apparently it switched. It was supposed to go into play tomorrow, and then when we come back on Thursday, we would have you guys working the new text line. But my understanding is that we have already switched it over. I just don't know how to see the new one yet. So I'm working on that. Those of you that text the show this early in the morning, I'm working on it. Please just know that. Okay? All right? Because I got to tell you, I don't like not having text on the show. I don't like not having you guys able to communicate on the show. So it is priority numero uno is to get the text line where I can read it this morning. In the meantime, if you want to be a part of the show, 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE is the number. You can shoot me a text, or excuse me, a tweet at The Rob Brown Show, at The Rob Brown Show, or tweet everybody at The Fan Upstate. And my email address is open, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. I do have that open already, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. If you want to shoot me an email, you can do that as well. So there's all the different ways to get in touch with the show until I get the text line up and running. Penn State knocks down SMU a few days ago, 38-10, your final in that one. They were able to keep Kevin Jennings really from doing anything. 195 through the air, one touchdown, 3 interceptions, all of them early. It put them in a 28-0 hole at the half that obviously at that point, Penn State just played keep away. They matched SMU score for score in the second half. They also held Kevin Jennings to, and this is a true number, minus 25 rushing yards on the game. Penn State was, and I don't use this expression lightly, getting after that ass all day long. They were doing the opposite of what Clemson, yes, I know Clemson won the game in the ACC title game, but obviously it was a hell of a lot closer than you probably wanted it to be. What with Los Tigres allowing the Stangers to kind of fight back into that ACC title game. And I've told you why I think that happened. I thought that happened because, and this is why, as of right now, the smoke is circling the Clemson camp, that there's going to be a coordinator change on the defensive side of the ball, that more than likely Wes Goodwin is going to be relieved of those duties. And the thought right now, the popular rumor amongst those who cover this team very closely, we talked to John Blau of the Post and Courier yesterday. He did not particularly care to go too deep into the projection and prognostication about what, if any, changes were going to be made. But the thought is that Wes Goodwin is likely on his way out, and that Dabo will go either inside of the program and bring up somebody who has been with him for a number of years within the Clemson system, or that Dabo might be looking outside the program to go get a more experienced veteran defensive coordinator to fill that role if and when they move on from Wes Goodwin. We're going to keep an eye on that. We'll cover it for you as we get, if we get any news on that front moving forward. But I think the reason that change is going to be made is because, as I said yesterday, the Clemson defense played soft. And when I say soft, I certainly do not mean soft in terms of physically. I don't mean soft in terms of mentality. I mean, quite literally, they played a soft defense. It was a lot of soft zone. It was a lot of sit back zone. It was a lot of, we're going to let you come to us. We're going to try to limit the explosive big plays down the field. We're going to play off the ball. We're going to play a soft zone. We're going to limit explosive plays, and we're going to make you gaseous if you want to win, which is not the end of the world, except for that's what happened a lot. That's what happened a lot. You got gashed. You go to the second half of that. Game against SMU in the ACC title game, a game that should not have been as close as it was when it was all said and done. And what did you see? Gash. You saw Kevin Jennings gash. You saw a couple of different running backs start to gash. And all of a sudden, Clemson found themselves tied with 16 seconds left to go, and a spectacular kick return and a big play from Cade Klubnik ended up effectively saving your life and getting you a playoff ticket at that spot, right? The reason Penn State was able to dispatch the SMU Stangers with so much, relatively speaking, ease was that they did the exact opposite. Penn State attacked. Penn State played on the forecheck, if you'll allow me to borrow a hockey expression. Penn State played forward. They played up. They played aggressively. They filled the gaps at the line of scrimmage, and they took away whatever it was that SMU was trying to do. That's why Kevin Jennings ended up with minus 25 rushing yards when it was all said and done, because they took everything away from SMU at the point of attack. They did the opposite. They did the opposite of what was said by Clemson. They said, we are going to take everything away from you at the line of attack. And if you're going to beat us, we're going to make you beat us by getting the ball down the football field. And Kevin Jennings was not comfortable doing that. And because he was not comfortable doing that, then it ended up in a spot where Kevin Jennings just didn't have I hate saying this. My bad. Didn't have the horses, man. He didn't have the horses. He didn't have the athletes down the field to make anything happen. And SMU was looking at a spot where Penn State had guys. In fact, I was going back. I watched a little bit of the highlights last night. The handful of times where Kevin Jennings was able to gain any positive traction running the football were spots where they were going five wides or spots where they utilized a bunch of misdirection. Now, there are some things that I need to say maybe change the game. SMU had in the first quarter, Jennings rolled out to the right. He had a tight end catch the ball at the 2-yard line that shoulda, coulda, woulda been a touchdown, and he dropped it. I mean, just a flat-out drop. There was nothing Penn State did there. At that point, it should have been 7-0 Nittany Lions. But SMU was just making those mistakes. Now, the bad news for Penn State is Boise State does not run a very complicated offense. You know what you're going to get going into that game. Ashton Jeanty is going to run at you 27, 28 times. That's going to be the game plan. So there's not a lot of mistakes a lot of misdirection that Boise State can run at Penn State this evening to get them to get them out of sorts, which is what SMU was doing early. They just had some drops and some bad reads. Once that started going sideways and once Penn State was able to get the lead, they just played off the forecheck. They just played forward. They just filled the gap. They said, Kevin Jennings, you're going to have to do something special. This rollout stuff ain't going to work. We're going to set the edge with defensive ends. We're going to fill the gaps with 3 rushers up the middle, and you're going to have to beat us. And he couldn't do it. I don't know how that works out with Ashton Jeanty. I like Penn State pretty comfortably tonight. We're going to talk more about that game. I got Denton Day from SiriusXM's College Football Overtime joining us at 8:40. We'll have Pat Boyle from the Infinity Sports Network joining us at 9:20. That's all coming up on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, thanks for being here. I'm going to step away for just a minute, set up the next break. Y'all stay right there for me. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. right, guys, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate y'all that are with us this morning. What do y'all want to talk about? You tell me. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I put a show together, but it's a holiday, man.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy. Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from ITA and the Ad Council.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, board-certified urologist and senior vice president of men's sexual health at HIMSS. In my 12 years of practice as a reproductive urologist, I've helped many guys with ED, and it has never been more convenient to treat than it is right now, thanks to HIMSS. It really wasn't easy before. You had to take time out of your day, come to a physical office, and see a specialist like me in person. Now, through HIMSS.com, you can get world-class sexual health care and a full range of treatment options for ED through a 100% online process. It starts with a free assessment from a medical provider licensed in your state that can determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. So don't wait. Join the hundreds of thousands of guys who've gotten help for their ED through HIMSS.
To start your free online visit and find ED treatment at up to 95% off brand name prices, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit.
Text or call. One number does it all. 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is the Rod Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show continues. It's the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob and just Rob today. Lonzo out this, today. Actually, you know what? I just realized I don't know if he's coming back at the end of the week or next week. Either way, you get me. I'm sorry or you're welcome. Whichever of those two things is more appropriate for you. However, I am glad to have you this AM. If you'd like to be a part of the show, join us. 844-326-3663 is the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. 844-FANFONE. Love to have you on the show. Do have Denton Day of Sirius XM going to be joining us coming up at 8:40 this morning. We will keep Denton. We may actually hang on to Denton for a couple of segments. Looking forward to having Denton on the show this morning. He is one of my favorite people to talk college football with. And then at 9:20, we will have Pat Boyle. Patty B, my dog. Pat Boyle is the host, a host on the BetQL network. He and I did a show together on New Year's Day. Pat Boyle is also a host on the Infinity Sports Network. And a wonderful one at that, does their NFL Sundays on the Infinity Sports Network. And just a blast to talk to. And on top of that, one of the most knowledgeable NFL dudes I've ever talked to. So we will talk to Pat Boyle coming up at 9:20. I've got both of those guests lined up for you later on in the show. Looking forward to have them. We will have Denton Day on the stream, and we will have Pat Boyle on the phone. I've never had anyone say this sentence to me, but I texted Pat yesterday. I'm like, yo, big dog, I'm going solo tomorrow. Do you mind coming on talking some football with me? He's like, yep, no worries, buddy. I got you. He said, but I'll have to do it on the phone if that's okay. I was like, yeah, for sure. What's up? What you got going on? Because ordinarily Pat joins us on the stream. And Pat said, I'm heading up to the Poconos. I was like, oh, okay. All right, fella. I didn't know that we was rolling like that. I'm heading up to the Poconos with the family this weekend. So we'll have those two fellas joining us later on. Let's see. Zach checks in on the live stream, facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, the Rob Brown Show on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. Join the live stream. It's just me today. And so we'd love to have you join us on the show. We got my man Zach in. He said Boise has a shot. They went toe-to-toe with the Ducks. They absolutely did. And I think that there is certainly something to be said for that. But I do think there is some level of concern about the Ducks. I think there's some caliber of concern about the Ducks and Boise State having played as early in the season as they did. That game was dramatically earlier in the year. And I do think that there was a spot earlier. If you go back, you will remember there was a point in time where people were kind of getting worried a little bit about the Oregon Ducks. There were folks that were getting a little concerned about the Oregon Ducks. And the concern was that team had a couple of spots where they were playing pretty slow football. Like it wasn't the Duck team that we all thought was going to dominate. And it was Boise State in week number 2. Now, this is not me saying it's an impossibility. But this was spot number 2 that this happened in. This wasn't a spot where, or the Oregon Ducks had been playing really good football, and here comes the Boise State Blue Turf Smurfs, and they're just absolutely, shocking the world with what they're doing. This was a week 2 matchup. Now, you are right. Ashton Jeanty put up a $192 and 3 tutties in that one. And I think that there's something about that, you can lean on, as Ashton Jeanty was. I've talked about this a couple of times. And everybody freaked out because Travis Hunter and the Buffaloes got beat in the bowl game. And Hunter, look, if Shedeur and Travis Hunter weren't checked out for that game, good on them. But I think they were checked out for that game. Shedeur showed up to that game repping his New York Giants cleats, right? He's already trying to set the stage for what his draft looks like, or at least what he wants it to look like. I think that they were checked out. So I'm not really taking. I'm not one of the folks that freaked out and went, "Oh, there's your Heisman Trophy." When I'm like, yeah, man, it was a meaningless bowl game, right? I get we want to, again, idealistically, we want to put all this emphasis on the bowl game. We had Dax Harwood of AEW on the show yesterday. He is a big college football guy, and I asked him specifically. I'm like, "Yo, how do you feel about non-playoff bowl games?" And All Elite Wrestling superstar Dax Harwood said, "Look, I watch them because they're football. I watch them because it's something to watch, right? I watch them because there's something to be entertained by." But even he was like, I don't know that there's a way to justify all of the hype about some of these bowl games, right? Like that's how I think most college football fans feel. So I'm not worried about taking Travis Hunter's Heisman away over a bad bowl game. What I will say is that Ashton Jeanty winning the Heisman would have made a ton of sense, because as we have pointed out a number of times, what Ashton Jeanty did this year was something we really have never seen before. The only reason he didn't win it is because Travis Hunter did something we've never seen before that was more impressive, right? So I'm not worried about Ashton Jeanty. I think he's going to get his. My question is, does Boise State have enough to take on an Oregon Duck team that kind of found its rhythm down the stretch? Did they do enough to keep up with an Oregon Duck team? Now, you can point to the 16-13 game on the road against Wisconsin and go, "Oh, maybe there's something there that we need to be concerned about. Maybe there's something to that we need to be concerned about." And I think, honestly, I think that's probably more than fair. But overall, Oregon was kind of, how we've talked about the concept of best versus most deserving. And I've said, to me, the debate isn't best or most deserving. The debate is between people who think we should judge a team based on what they look like in week 14, the last week of the regular season, versus people like me who think we should take into consideration everything that a team has done from week 1 to week 14. The Oregon Ducks were a team that got progressively better as the season went on. I mean, they were already good, but they got progressively better as the season went on. And they got, I think, rewarded for that. Boise State might be the most consistent team. Ashton Jeanty might be the most consistent player in college football. And the recognition for that obviously was a first-round bye based on winning the Mountain West Conference, being the top 4 champ. We all know that. And I for the record, I do think they are going to put up points on Penn State. The problem I think they bump into is that Penn State is a team that not just can sell out against the run, I think will sell out against the run. I think they will wholesale sell out against the run. And if they're able to keep Ashton Jeanty to, let's say, $110, $125, and maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns, I don't know that Boise State has any weapons around that they can take advantage of to keep this game close. I could be overthinking it here. I could be overthinking it. Maybe we just need to lean on, hey, Boise State's going to do what they've done to everybody else. But I think Penn State is going to sell out on the run. Not that they can take Ashton Jeanty away, but they can limit him to not get the $190 and 3 tutties he put up against the Ducks in week 2. And if they can do that, this is one of those spots that I think, and I think this is something I found out in round number 1. I think sometimes I misunderstand. Oh, nah, that's not the right way to put it. I think sometimes I overthink games in the playoffs, right? Like I think, and this is why I've said I don't like to talk about intangibles, because I can't quantify intangibles, right? Intangibles to me are unknowns. Oh, this coach is really motivated and this player's got a point to it. Okay, there's nothing I can do with that, right? Like I think if you start getting to a point where you're picking or betting on those, you get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Not to say you should negate them entirely, but I think if that's what you're leaning on, you get yourself in a little bit of trouble. What I'm going to say is this is a spot where I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to pick the better football team. And this is with all due respect, obviously, to Boise State, because what Boise State has accomplished is beyond impressive. But I think this is going to be one of those spots where I am going to pick the better football team. I think Penn State just dominates at the line of scrimmage. Ashton's going to get his. I don't know what else Boise State can do against an aggressive Penn State defense. This is one of those spots that I am going to say I'm going to pick the better team. I'm going to pick the team that I believe is more dominant at the line of scrimmage, and that's Penn State. All right, we'll talk more about the rest of the games. I got your water cooler cheat sheet coming up here in just a minute. Top 3 sports stories you need to know as you get to the office, or don't, because Happy New Year's Eve. Next hour of the show. What's your sports resolutions for 2025? What's your resolution for you, for your favorite team, for your favorite player? We'll do New Year's resolutions in the world of sports when we come back on The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Nuggets guard Russell Westbrook became just the 3rd player in NBA history to record a perfect triple-double, 0 turnovers, and shot 100% from the field last night. ESPN reports that the Nuggets' Nikola Jokic in 2018 and the Kings' Domantas Sabonis back in November were the only 2 other players to accomplish the feat. Westbrook finished with 16, 10, and 10 for his 201st career triple-double, the most in NBA history. The Buffalo Bills have nothing to play for this weekend, already locked into the 2 seed, but will start MVP candidate Josh Allen anyway in order to maintain his consecutive start streak. Allen will start his 105th consecutive game dating back to his rookie year, the 11th longest streak amongst quarterbacks and the longest active streak by more than double. And the Gamecock basketball team avoided a scare last night, trailing the Presbyterian Blue Hose by 8 at the half. The Gamecocks would rally for a 69-59 win. Colin Murray-Boyles led the Gamecocks with 22 and 9 boards. Nick Pringle added 14 more. South Carolina now 10-3 with 2 of their 3 losses to ranked teams. They kick off SEC play at Mississippi State on January 4th. Man, I was just pushing all the buttons right there. Unplugged my headset. It is absolute chaos up in here. All right, you guys stay right there. I will address your comments, and we will pick it back up when I come back. Give me just a second. BRB. All right, thanks for hanging in there, guys.
With diesel and coal prices.
Turn on, leave on. Afternoons 3 to 7 on the Fan Upstate. Warning.
Man, check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents freedom, freedom. Yeah.
Unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show.
The Fan Upstate.
Here we go. Our numero dos of the Rob Brown Show is live. Welcome back. boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. It's spectacular to have you with us here on a beautiful Tuesday morning. Happy New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to all of you out there across Sportslandia. I hope that 2025 is setting up to be your best year ever. I don't know how it's 2025 already. I moved here yesterday, except yesterday was 5 years ago somehow. Not quite 5 years ago, end of March, but you get, or end of February, early March, you get the point. Yeah, man. Yeah. My knee just started hurting. I don't know why. I don't know why. Why you wear a hat all the time, Rob? It's because my hair's turning gray very rapidly as the years march on. But I know 2025 is setting up exceptionally well for us here at the Fan Upstate, and I hope the same is true for you, no matter who you are. I'm sorry, I ran out of rhymes there. We have got a bunch of things that we have got to talk about on the show this morning. A lot of stuff that we have got to chat about, and we will continue to do so. That potential change to the college football playoff format. That is an item on the water cooler cheat sheet, which we are coming to here in just mere moments from right now. We're going to talk some college football playoffs with the legendary Denton Day coming up at 8:40 this morning. Denton Day will swing by. We'll talk some college football playoffs with the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. We will talk to Pat Boyle, Patty B, host on the BetQL Network, and on the Infinity Sports Network, and on Sirius XM Radio. He is one of the most dialed in NFL bros that I knows from anywhere on the radios. I don't know why I keep rhyming things, but whatever, shut up. I'm by myself today. All right. I'm just out here cooking, as Russ would say. So we'll get into it with Patty Boyle later on in the show as well. Coming up in this hour of the show, sports resolutions for 2025. What do you resolve to do? What do you want your team's resolution, your school's resolution, your franchise's resolution for 2025 to be? I'm going to tell you a couple of mine. I want yours as well. All of that is coming up later in the show. All of that is coming up after we do this. It's the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office this morning, or maybe you're staying home. It's New Year's Eve. Take the day off, man. Listen, you can call the boss right now. Text him, shoot him a text right now, and tell the boss man, hey, Rob Brown told me that I was allowed to have the day off today. Call the boss. Said, look, I was listening to the radio bright and early this morning. Rob Brown said, hey, man, you don't have to go into work today. And, that's just pretty much how it is now. So I'm not coming in. Rob Brown said, okay. Item number 1, glug, 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 glug. I don't have Lonzo Sounders. You're going to have to deal with it. Last night, a little Monday night football wrapped up the NFL's week. The Detroit Lions are perfecto on the road, 8-0 to wrap up the year as they go out to San Francisco, California, and score a 40-34 dub over the 49ers. This one was interesting, not because it was a 6-point game, although that did help. This one was interesting for one reason and one reason alone. This one was interesting because Detroit decided to roll out the starters in a meaningless game. Jared Goff, 26 of 34, 303, 3 tutties, no picks. 152 yards on the ground for the Detroit Lions, including a $117 and a tutty from Jahmyr Gibbs. Jameson Williams had 5 grabs for 77 and a touch. Sam Laporta, 6 for 64 and a touch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 for 60 and a touch. The Lions rolled offensively last night. Brock Purdy, however, also rolled 27 of 35, 377, 3 touchdowns, but he was picked off twice, and that, my dudes and dudettes, was the difference. San Francisco had only 75 rushing yards, 34 of them from Isaac Guerendo, 16 from Debo. Debo was once again just about MIA, not just about, was MIA from the passing game, one snag, 5 yards. He did score on his one grab, but there were 2 dudes with days for San Francisco on the receiving side of the football. Ricky Pearsall, the draft pick out of the University of Florida, a cat that got shot in the offseason. Pretty good. 8 snacks, $141 and a touch. Tight end George Kittle had 8 grabs for 112 and no touchdowns for Kittle, but he did have a 22-yarder where it looked like he was going to threaten one. Either way, the Niners, good fight. Good fight. They just don't have the run game right now. They are on their practice squad running back at this point effectively. So why is this a game that's controversial? Because it bothers me, frankly. I understand that this mentality is the mentality that makes Dan Campbell Dan Campbell. I understand that this mentality is the mentality that makes the Detroit Lions the Detroit Lions. I understand that they are where they are because of this mindset. But it blows my mind that when you have the injury issues that you've had, you've already lost Montgomery out of the backfield. You've got, 9 of your starting 11 defenders from week 1 on injured reserve right now. I mean, it's ridiculous numbers. With all those injuries in a year in which you are effectively, when you're healthy, the best team in the NFC. You are at 14-2, tied with the Minnesota Vikings as the best team. You are competing for a big time pick here. You have locked up a playoff berth for sure. This game, by and large, was meaningless because, before you say, wait a minute, Rob, there's one more game, and you have the game next week is the NFC North battle. Detroit and Minnesota play for the NFC North and will play for the number 1 seed in the NFC. The winner of that game will be 15-2. The winner of that game will win the NFC and be the 1 seed. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Why are we going full tilt wholesale last night, Dan Campbell? I understand that that's the mentality that got where you got, but you got where you got. You're there now. If the goal is to drive 100 miles an hour to get to the destination as quickly as possible, when you get to the destination, you don't keep driving 100 miles an hour. You take the foot off the accelerator and you slow down. We're here now. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it. It didn't make sense to me. All right, let's get to item number 2. Glug, 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 glug. Brett McMurphy of The Athletic put up an interesting tweet yesterday. McMurphy said yesterday that there is a serious conversation that is taking place right now. And that serious conversation that is taking place right now is that the college football playoffs might be changing format sooner rather than later. This is not about expanding to 16, at least not yet. The conversation, according to Brett McMurphy of the Athletic, is that there will be in-depth discussions. I'm reading from his tweet from yesterday. There will be in-depth discussions about not, with a capital N, not guaranteeing conference champions top 4 college football playoff seeds in 2025. Top 5 conference champs would still get in, but the rankings would determine seeds. Now, if that was to have been the case this year, this is how the brackets would have shaken out. In the opening round, the 8-9 matchup would have been the number 9 Boise State Blue Turf Smurf Broncos heading to Hoosierville to take on Indiana. The 12-seed Clemson would have remained the same. However, instead of playing Texas, you would have been on the road at Notre Dame. The 11-seeded Arizona State Sun Devils, Big 12 champions, would have been on the road at the Big Ten's Ohio State Buckeyes. And SMU would have been on the road in Knoxville, Tennessee. Your buys would have been the 1-seed Oregon, the 2-seed Georgia, the 3-seed Texas, and the 4th-seed Penn State. So what's that mean? If this system is discussed and approved, you would have ended up with a Big Ten team in Oregon getting a bye, an SEC team in Georgia getting a bye, an SEC team in Texas getting a bye, and a Big Ten team in Penn State getting a bye. Your host sites in round 1 would have been the Big Ten's Indiana, Independent Notre Dame, the Big Ten's Ohio State, and the SEC's Tennessee. Now, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more coming up in a minute. We're also going to talk about this with Denton Day of SiriusXM's College Football Overtime coming up to wrap up the next hour of the show at 8:40. I think it is important to do a couple of things. I think it is important to recognize success. I think it is important to reward wins. Winning in college football is hard even when you have an easy schedule. It's not easy to go 12-0, 11-1. But I also think it is massively importante that we reward strength of schedule. Okay? I think that this is an attempt to do so. But let me tell you where the criticism is going to lie. The criticism is going to lie in the fact that in round number 1, Big Ten, Independent, Big Ten, SEC host. Right? The Big 12, the ACC, everybody else has got to travel. The criticism that the college football playoffs are the Big Ten SEC Invitational would not be quashed by this. So hosting in the first round would be Big Ten Indiana, Independent Notre Dame, Big Ten Ohio State, SEC Tennessee. Your teams on the bye would be Big Ten Oregon, Big Ten Penn State, SEC Texas, SEC Georgia. So the effort is to reward teams that have a strength of schedule, that find themselves, even with a loss, maybe 2, still up towards the top of the top 10. But the criticism is going to be that all you're rewarding is the SEC and the Big Ten. No one else gets an opportunity to be rewarded here. That's just how it breaks down. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what the criticism is going to be. We're going to circle back around to this coming up here in just a minute from now. But we got to wrap up the water cooler cheat sheet with item number 3. Glug, glug, glug. Glug, glug. South Carolina Gamecock basketball team is 10-3. They opened the season with a bad loss against North Florida. Since then, they lost 2 more games, both of them against top 25 teams. Quad 1 L's, if you will. Last night, we had week 1 vibes all over again. Because at the half, the Gamecocks trailed the Presbyterian Blue Hose, who are, after last night, 7-8, 1-7 on the road. At the crib, the Gamecocks trailed the Blue Hose by 8, but they got it turned around. They had a 45-point second half. To put that in comparison, they had just 24 in the first half. They scored 45 in the second half for a 69-59 win over Presbyterian. 22 out of Colin Murray Boyles. He also added 9 boards and a pair of assists with 1 steal. Nick Pringle, who he's been better than he was last night, but he was 5 of 6, 4 of 7 from the stripe last night. Cat, I need more force feed inside to Nick Pringle. All right. If my man's going 5 of 6 from the inside, I need him to have more than 6 field goal attempts on the inside. 14 points. I also need him to pick up the rebounding. 5 boards last night for Nick Pringle when it was all said and done. The Gamecocks ended up with 17 points off the bench, but it was Murray Boyle's 22 that led the rally in the second half. South Carolina now 10-3, 8-1 at the crib. As we mentioned just a minute ago, the 3 losses, 1 to North Florida by 3, all the way back in the opening game of the season. The North Florida Ospreys get the dub. They drop 1 to number 16, Indiana. They drop 1 to number 22, Xavier. Now it's time for SEC play. You open on the road at Mississippi State on January 4th. And the reason that this feels so interesting to me, is because the SEC, as much hell as I have given them over the years, dig this. Number 1, Tennessee. Number 2, Auburn. Number 5, Alabama. Number 6, Florida. Number 10, Kentucky. Number 12, Oklahoma. Number 13, Texas A&M. Number 17, Mississippi State. Number 23, Arkansas. Number 24, Ole Miss. And you have other teams that are receiving votes from the SEC that are just on the outside looking in. This conference is damn good at basketball this year. Like, damn good at basketball this year. And I wish South Carolina the best, because for a team that continues to grow under Lamont, this conference is going to be a demon this year. All right, when we come back, let's address the potential changes to the college football playoff system that Brett McMurphy tweeted out about yesterday. We will do that when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
This is the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
Can't wait to hear what's next on Wire to Wire with Cole and Diesel.
Tell me what's coming up. Tolos, I don't know how you celebrate the new year, whether it's collards for the dollars or whatever it may be. I wish you and your family the happiest of New Year's. Diesel and I will be back together after a 14-day hiatus, back on Thursday, 2025. The best is yet to come for Wire to Wire. We'll see you then.
Diesel and Cole Bryson really bring it on Wire to
All right, guys, give me a second. I'll step right out, and I will come right back. Please don't leave. Be right back. The live stream is up, facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, or The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. We'd love to have you join us. We are live all 4 hours today. Your boy, rolling solo this AM. Come through, join the stream with us. We got up here. We got Zach, we got Kane, we got Frank, we got Jacob, we got Chris, we got Trey, we got Madcraft, we got Mike, all holding it down in the stream right now. Here's what we got. Let's see. Let's get some of the thoughts in here before we get to this college football discussion that we're about to have regarding the tweet from Beck McMurphy yesterday. Jacob said, I definitely didn't think the show was on today, but I checked anyway, and heck yeah, it's on. Heck yeah, it's on, man. It's on because I was actually going to be off today initially. I was actually going to take the day off. But then I decided that, I had 3 days off last week. Why not just make it the round 4, right? Like, let's not just. So I used last Tuesday as my last holiday. And on top of that, we got a college football playoff game today. We got a college football playoff game tomorrow. I'd have worked them both, but there's about a 0.327% chance that I'm in any condition to work tomorrow morning. I love New Year's Eve, all right? Like, I'm a believer that every single New Year's Day is a new chance at a new opportunity, right? Like it's I don't know about you. I gauge my life in milestones, right? Like I look at it and I go, that's a milestone, that's a milestone. A new year is a milestone. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for everybody to kind of dial in, look at what's been happening, what you're not happy with, and get it fixed. And it's an opportunity to like set a mark and go, today is that day. So, I'm going to leave what I want to leave of 2024 in the bottom of a bottle tonight. And when we wake up tomorrow, it's a new day with new opportunities to move forward into 2025 and be bigger and better than ever before. So I'm out tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a day to sit around, recover, focus, dial in, set the objectives for 2025 and move on. But you get me today because I love you, baby. Because I love you. Let's see here. Jacob said, I'm one step ahead of you, Robert. LOL. I used my floating holiday today so I can watch the Gamecocks. We'll talk a little Gamecock footy later on in the show. They got the big Cheez-Its Bowl set here just a couple of hours from now. So we'll talk about that. Let's see here. My man Kane checking in with by the way, with the Bob Ross profile picture. That's good work, Kane. That's good work. Big Bob Ross guy over here. He said Detroit has not made it yet. If MCDC rested the starters and they lost, they would have been demoralized going into a game with the 1 seed online. See, I don't know. Again, Kane, this is kind of one of those spots that if you listen to this show for any length of time, as I mentioned in the last segment, I don't like to talk about intangibles. I don't like to go, well, this team would have been demoralized and this team's super high and this team's that. Because all the time we go, oh, this team's real high, and then they get their asses kicked. Or, this, I don't understand how this team's going to bounce back from this. And then they do that, right? Like, I'm not saying they're not real. I'm just saying it's real hard for dudes like us with laptops and microphones to genuinely put ourselves into that spot, into that mindset, into the player mentality, and be able to say, okay, well, I think this or I think that. Like, I think it's tough to do. So I don't really get into the intangibles because I ain't in that locker room. I don't know. I can't tell you how they are feeling or what they are looking at. And I think because of that, I've always kind of just held off. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I don't look at the starters and go, look, next week is the division. Next week is the 1 seed. Next week is the biggest game that you will play until the playoffs. I want you rested. Detroit had their bye week in week 5. Week number 5. You have played 12 consecutive football games without a break. Now, I'm fat and old and out of shape, and so I don't know what that's like. But I imagine, and I could be wrong about this, that's hard, that's exhausting, and that's brutalizing. I don't know that the demoralizing, Kane, wouldn't be playing a 13th consecutive football game without a break. But the good news is, courtesy of one Dan Campbell, I think we're about to find out. I think we're about to find out. We'll see. We'll see how it shapes out. All right, let's get to this this Brett McMurphy tweet. I tell you what, we're already almost at the break, so I'll keep with the comments on the stream right now. If you want to get yours read, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/thefanupstate, the YouTube page by searching and subscribing to the Fan Upstate on YouTube, or the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on Twitch, or on YouTube as well. Join the live stream. We're live all 4 hours. I don't know that I'm playing the starters if I'm Dan Campbell last night. I want the boys a hundy next weekend. Not only are you playing a good Minnesota team, you're playing a healthy Minnesota team, and you're playing a Minnesota team. You want to talk about emotion, King. You want to talk about, oh, Detroit would have been demoralized and the guys would have been down and all that. Which, again, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Neither do you. Neither one of us is in that locker room to be able to say for sure. Here's what I do know. What I do know is that right now, this Minnesota Viking team is riding high. Did you see the locker room celly for Sammy D when Darnold hit the locker room after a 300-plus yard day last week? They were electric. All the things that we have said about Detroit so far, I think you can say a lot of the same about Minnesota. You can talk about mentality with Minnesota. You can talk about aggression with Minnesota. You can talk about creativeness with the offense with Minnesota. Everything we're saying about Detroit, we should be saying about Minnesota. I'm working on a theory right now because I got asked the question the other day, Rob Brown, why do you think people aren't talking about Minnesota? I told Cody Decker on Bet for the Cycle, which airs every Saturday from noon to 4 on the BetQL network, when we got to talking about it, he said, why aren't we talking about Minnesota? And I said, you want my real theory? My real theory is because people aren't excited about Sam Darnold. That's it. People aren't excited about Sam Darnold. You can be excited about the Jared Goff storyline. You can be excited about the Ben Johnson drama. You can be excited about Dan Campbell being an insane person. You can be excited about all of those things. And I think you should be. But I think for all the things that we are talking about with Detroit, I think you can say the same things about Minnesota. And frankly, we probably should be. So when I look at this matchup next week, if I am Dan Campbell, I want the healthiest Detroit Lions I can get. And by the way, that ain't super healthy. You're banged up, dog. Like, this team's banged up. I want them healthy. I need Jahmyr Gibbs at 100% next week. I'm down to one running back, at least one starting running back. I want that dude as healthy as I can have that dude next week. And right now, you're not there. I can't risk Jared Goff in this spot. I can't risk one receiver. The Lion offense works because of the fact that you've got 3 wide receivers that are dangerous threats at all 3 levels of the field. One of those guys goes down, defenses breathe a little bit. I don't know that I agree with that. All right, here's what I do agree with. I do agree with the fact that we've got to run to a break. And when we come back, I promise you, we're talking about this college football tweet that Brett McMurphy sent out yesterday, that the format of the college football playoffs might be changing. We may no longer award the 4 byes to the top 4 highest ranked conference champions. It may just go to the top 4 ranked teams. On one hand, kind of feels like this is a little to the SEC and the Big Ten. On the other hand, if you want strength of schedule to matter more, this is a good way to incentivize that. We'll address that when we come back. I am Rob Brown, and you are listening to the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
The Fan Upstate
is the sports voice of you, the Upstate fan. Call 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The Fan Upstate.
I'm Tony Kaziri with your sports update on the Fan Upstate.
NFL, the Carolina Panthers losing on the road Sunday to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 48-14. They dropped to 4-12. Bryce Young threw for 203 yards with 2 touchdowns. Both to Adam.
All right, guys, let me step away for just a minute. I'll come back. We got that college football discussion up next. Stay right there. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Sorry, I'm trying to knock everything out on my own today.
Early birds get the sports scoop. The Rob Brown Show. Now, morning 6 to 10.
On the Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show continues. It's the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob, rolling solo today. If you want to be a part of the show, now is your opportunity. 844-326-3663. 844-FANFONE. That is the number to the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Let me get, you know what? I got Denton Day coming in here now. I kept saying 840. Let me get my man Denton up in here real quick. We're going to talk to Denton Day, talk a little college football with Denton Day. Looking forward to that. Denton's my go-to college football guy. Dude's the best. Host for Sirius XM's College Football Overtime and as well as the BetQL Network. Dude is phenomenal. We're getting him, working on him right now, as a matter of fact. I said 840, but it's actually 740. You get him set up. Sorry, this is on the fly because I had the wrong time written down. So I'll get Denton Day up in here in just a second. We'll talk some college football with my dog. He is the best. We are going to talk some Penn State, Boise State. We'll talk about the other 3 games that are coming up on the show tomorrow as well, and get you previewed on all of those as soon as Denton Day gets in here. I'll also let you know that coming up at 9:15, we will have Pat Boyle, Patty B, joining us. Pat Boyle, host on the BetQL Network as well as Sirius XM and the Infinity Sports Network. But now, my dudes and dudettes, we welcome in a young man we have the pleasure of speaking with, usually on Wednesdays, but kind enough to join us today because A, I'm off tomorrow, and B, I'm by myself. So no longer, because the legendary Denton Day joins us here on the program. What's up, big fella?
Rob, what's going on, man? How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm just living the dream, partner. I'm in here, I'm talking about football, and I'm getting money for it. How bad could I possibly be, pal?
I'm not about to be in the same boat as you are. You know, we're working on, I don't think people know how hard it is for those of us who work on fake holidays. It's not a real holiday today, but it's a fake holiday because most normal people don't take the day. So, I'm about to be right where you are in a couple hours running everything by myself.
Just so we're clear, I am absolutely team take advantage of fake holidays, bud.
I am too, but it's different for us particularly just because we don't really get holidays.
No, see, and this is tell me how this is shaken out in your life, Denton Day, because when I started dating my wife, coming up on damn near 5 years ago now, when I started dating my wife, I told her, whatever amount of sports you think is a lot to watch, like triple that and then again, and that's what we do. And especially with college football playoffs, the NFL playoffs just down the pipe, etc. Like that's about to skyrocket. She's a Gamecock, and we got the Cocks playing today down in the Cheez-Its Bowl. Then we got a playoff game tonight. We got 3 of them tomorrow, and she's like, "What are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Sit right there on that couch, drink bourbon, and work." Because the problem that I don't think a lot of people recognize, Denton Day, is that while, yes, it may appear that we are just sitting on the couch drinking bourbon and watching football, we're actually very hard at work, sir.
Very hard at work. I told my soon-to-be wife the same thing, and then I got a gig where I was doing an overtime show with college football, and guess what Saturday became? It's literally just sitting on the couch. And I've done my best, Rob, to be a good fiance, soon-to-be husband, and try and at least sprinkle some other form of entertainment in before games start. Maybe if there's a break in the action, we can cook a meal together. Maybe we're out to do something real quick. But Saturdays, man, they're tough. It's a lot of football. Tomorrow is going to be nothing but football. Like I'm working in the morning, I'm taking a nap, and I'm watching football.
That's it. Listen, on Tuesday nights, we can go see Wicked. On Thursdays, we can head to the flea market, whatever you want. But when Saturday rolls around, it's work, babe. It's work, man. That's how it goes.
Thankfully, my fiance she understands it now. After 3 years, she's like, you know what, I can kind of get with this. I'll plan it around my week around that too, so we make it work.
Well, that's because of all those Lamborghinis you can afford to buy her, I am sure.
I got to be honest, if I was driving Lamborghinis, Rob, I would be nowhere found. If I had money for Lambos, I had money to be not working.
Fair enough. Denton Day joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate, my man. Let's dive right in. We talked a little bit. We had you on to talk a little bit about the post round one. Let's start with that, and then we'll dive into the preview of the game tonight and the 3 tomorrow. We had 4 blowouts, all 4 home team wins. Here's where I landed, Denton Day. See if you agree or you're on the opposite side. The fact that we had 4 blowouts doesn't change anything for me. We still had, in my opinion, a good 12. We still had, I thought, a nice combination of the best and most deserving, because I do think deserving is, I don't know why that's said like it's a cuss word when it comes to playoff selection. Just because we had blowouts in round 1, that doesn't change the fact that, to me, we had a good 12. We had an opening round. We just had 4 really good teams kick ass at home.
I'm mostly with you. I've always been of the belief that going from 4 to 12 was, generally speaking, aggressive. But I think the flaw that we saw the first week of the college football playoff was the way that they seeded. Because if you seed it differently, maybe you don't get as many blowouts. And I think there's very much a avenue to where you get your 12 teams in there. Your 12 teams are locked in. And then from that point, you see them accordingly instead of, certain teams get buys. Because if you would have had let's just say an Arizona State play last weekend or a Boise State play last weekend, those games are likely a lot closer. And from a viewer standpoint, you're going to be much more entrenched to those. So I would have loved to see it reseeded as we go forward. But blowouts are a thing in the college football playoff. It doesn't matter if you're a 4 team, if you were like me, you were an 8 team, maybe you're 6, 12, maybe you're a psycho and you want 24 because you think this is March Madness. Blowouts are going to happen. That's just kind of the nature of what college football is.
I don't disagree. I would look at, and we'll come to this Brett McMurphy tweet here in a second, but I would look and I go, okay, even if we say, all right, we reseed and we got SMU and Boise State, doesn't it kind of feel like, okay, we're just pushing a couple of blowouts to round 2 at that point?
Yeah, probably. But at least you get, for Boise in particular, if you want to argue they should get a home game, I would have loved to see that blue field in action, right? Instead of reseeding them to now where they're going to be the home team against Penn State. That's kind of a tough one there. So I would have loved to see them get a little bit of action early. It almost, I hope, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just super out of touch, but it almost feels like Boise State had all that momentum of Ashton Jeanty being a Heisman Trophy winner, and then it kind of crashed because you turned your focus to everything else. And now you're trying to get back into believing that Boise State's fun and Ashton Jeanty's awesome, but you also just watched 4 blowouts, and you're like, well, what is Penn State going to do to these guys?
I don't have an issue with that. So let's go to this Brett McMurphy tweet yesterday. He said on The Athletic that there's a discussion going on that the format in terms of who's in won't change. That is to say, you're still going to have the top 5 highest rating conference champs and then 7 at large, but that instead of the seeding being determined by the 4 highest rated conference champs getting the bye, that the seeding would be determined by the final playoff rating seedings, which would have meant this year that Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Penn State caught buys, but that would have sent Boise State on the road to Indiana, not the other way around, as Indiana would have been 8, Boise State 9. So this, to me, Denton Day, I understand the concept behind it. It's, hey, let's reward strength of schedule. If you build up such a good strength of schedule that even with the loss or 2, you're still in those top seedings, you're not going to get jumped by an Arizona State or a Boise State. I don't have an issue with that, except for every home team in the first round and every team with the bye in the second round is Big Ten, SEC, or independent Notre Dame, and nobody else. I get the concept and what the building block of this is, Denton Day, but it's just going to exacerbate the claim that this is a Big Ten SEC invitational.
I hope that is something that will change over the next few years. I have been of the belief, Rob, that the Big 12 was way better than the committee gave them credit for. I thought that conference, it was so wide, so you're naturally going to have teams with a little bit more losses. But I thought that conference was as good as it's been in quite some time. They don't have that top-heavy team like they have with Texas last year, with Oklahoma when Lincoln was there in previous years. But as far as the conference as a whole, I thought it was fantastic. And I thought Arizona State was pretty good this year. So I think in the years to come, you will see maybe a little bit more of a balance in that somebody in the Big 12 will eventually become what Texas and Oklahoma was for such a long time and have some sort of reign of dominance to where people outside of the conference look at them and say, this is one of the 4 best teams.
Denton Day from SiriusXM's College Football Overtime joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. All right, let's turn our attention, Denton Day, to these games upcoming, including obviously tonight, Penn State and Boise State. I feel like, because you and I both thought there was at least the possibility of an upset or two in the first round, certainly closer games than we got. I don't know if I'm overreacting to the first round. But for this game tonight, specifically from a gambling perspective, but really just in a picking perspective, man, I think I'm just going to pick the better team. I think I'm just going to say Penn State's going to win this game and try not to overthink it. I really like Ashton Jeanty, but we saw against Kevin Jennings in round 1 that Penn State is absolutely willing to sell out defensively to take away your best player and say, you got to do something else somewhere else. And the problem is, I don't know what else Boise State has outside of him going for a $190 and 3 tutties, which I don't think he's doing against Penn State tonight. This one feels to me like a game that I don't want to overthink, and I'm just locking down a Penn State cover before that line moves up to 12.5 or better.
It's probably the smart way to go. I mean, their quarterback's pretty decent, but he's not winning you a college football playoff game. Like, he's not that much of a gamer the way that we've seen other guys be in college football this year. And on top of that, Rob, they got a really kind of sucky Drew Aller game in round 1. I have a feeling that's not going to be the case today. I think you're going to see a much better performance from Drew Aller. And if you won by 28 when your quarterback went like 13-27, what are you going to do when he goes a lot better than that? I think that's the smart way to take this. Look at the teams. Who do you think is better? I know people want to make this March Madness, and I'm certainly very much in the mood for upsets. I thought SMU might have gotten Penn State last week. But you do have to realize there is a very big difference between a team like Penn State, just in the physical nature of what they are, and a team like Boise State. It's going to be very, very tough to pull the upset. So I'm with you on Penn State.
Yeah, it's just, again, like I think I go back and I look at last week and go, if you just pick the better team to cover, you're 4 for 4 on the books last week. And that's like, I wonder how much and I do wonder this, Denton Day, and this is more of I guess a philosophical thing than it is a sports thing. Did we get caught up in either A, wanting to kind of prove like, oh, the guys who aren't Big Ten and SEC, they belong here too, and we got caught up in that? Or did we get caught up in, we just really want the 12-team playoff to be exciting, and if we have all chalk in round 1, especially with 4 ass whoopings like we got, it kind of takes the heat out the kitchen a little bit?
Yeah, definitely more the latter, although I haven't seen, I was gone for a couple of days, and I did my best when I was on vacation to kind of put the phone away, at least for a little bit. I haven't seen the ratings, but my guess is the television ratings are still good. And if the television ratings are good, because the one thing that they got right, Rob, the environments were crazy.
Sure.
So even when the blowouts were happening, I was still kind of locked in for the environments just to kind of see what this is. Like, one thing that I've learned over the history of watching college football, not all blowouts are the same. Like, you can have some fun blowouts. I think of Burrow when he threw 7 tutties against Oklahoma in that first half. Like, that's a fun blowout because you're like, oh my God, he's doing something historic. And watching kind of the rowdiness of some of the crowds in that first week, that was enough to keep me around. So obviously you want the games to be exciting down the stretch, but also you got to know the history of what this is. The 12 team is going to work. They're going to make it work. They're going to work. It's not like you're rewriting and reinventing the wheel here. You're just putting 12 teams. You're just giving us more college football. So the 12-team thing will work. I just do hope that eventually there's a balance to where these games are more exciting.
I don't disagree. Real quick, because you brought up the ratings, this is actually one of our Sports Flash news stories today. Both of the games on Saturday up against NFL games got their asses kicked. SMU and Penn State averaged 6.4 million viewers against the over 15.5 for Kansas City, Houston. Clemson and Texas drew 8.6 million versus over 15.4 million for Baltimore and Pittsburgh. The 2 other games that were not against NFL games averaged 10.6 million. So the games that did not go to head-to-head with the NFL outdrew all but 4 regular season college football games. The 2 games against the NFL were about 4 million below the average.
I mean, those ratings, I've been told that the 4 million mark is what television companies love. If you can get over 4 million viewers, that puts you in a class of your own, which is why the Big Ten and the SEC have these massive television deals, because they frequently surpass that number. But a college football playoff game getting 6 million viewers, that's a tough look.
Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of regulars. In fact, the highest, I want to say like 20 regular season games were more than Penn State SMU. I do have to wonder, and I think it's fair for the sake of the discussion, Denton Day, I think it's also fair to ask the question, is that because of who was in it, right? Like if let's say that's a second round game and it's Ohio State, Oregon, is that a different number? I have to imagine it is. I don't think it's competing with an NFL game, but I think it's closer to that 10 million mark that we're looking for.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I do think it's impressive that Texas Clemson got 8 million, because I can't imagine there are a lot of things, Rob, that have gone up against the NFL and garnered 8 million views.
Yeah,
so I think brand definitely matters in that.
All right, real quick, Denton Day, before we let you go, let's take a look at some of these other games that are taking place. We've got the New Year's Eve game out of the way. Let's start with Texas, Arizona State. This is the largest spread of any first-round game. Texas is laying 13 flat as it stands right now. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I kind of want to grab that number because I think it might go to minus 14 before kickoff tomorrow. I think it could move as much as a full point in the last day. I really like Cam Scattaboo. I think that dude's got the swagger and the cockiness I want out of a guy who runs like a 1975 fullback out there. But I'm doing the same thing here and going, look, I'm just going to pick. I like Arizona State. I'm with you. I think it's a good team. I think they might have the most underappreciated head coach in college football this year. Texas just got more beef across the line, dude.
Yeah, they got more beef across the line. I love Scatteroo. I'm with you. He is right from the neck of the woods. He is like a Jacob Hester, old school meathead, right? And I love watching that. But that number is massive. If that goes to 14.5, maybe I'll jump on Arizona State, because I do think the first half will be close. But I see this playing out as that Kenny Dillingham, as much as we love him, he's going to do something maybe a little aggressive that his team cannot execute on, and that blows this thing out of the water.
All right, let's take a look at the afternoon game, 5 p.m., and this one might be the most interesting game of the opening round, and I'll tell you why when we get to the last one. But the Rose Bowl, Ohio State and Oregon, a couple of guys that have already gotten together once this season. Oregon barely escapes the Buckeyes. Of course, a lot of folks get down on Ohio State after the Buckeyes lose to Michigan, but they turn around and they just run Tennessee out of the building. That was my upset pick in the first round, and way wrong on that. Oregon is a team that got better day to day, but they've also been sitting down. And when you have that Dylan Gabriel timing-based offense, I get a little concerned here. Am I nuts for wanting to think the Buckeyes walk out of here with a dub?
You're certainly not nuts. I'm on the other side. I'm on Oregon, but this is the national championship, Rob. These to me are the two best teams, and you're playing at the best venue. So it is everything that I want in a national championship coming together and colliding. It just happened in a few rounds too early. But I like Oregon in this one, just because I tend to, when you play a team a second time, I tend to go with the team that won the first time. I know most people say, I'm going to go with the other team, but there's a little bit of a history in the first team that won winning again. So I'm going to go with that. I think Dan Lanning finally ascends to the mountaintop that I think he is already at, but being viewed as one of the legit best coaches in college football and having potentially a national championship to validate that.
I don't hate the take. I mean, that's only a 2.5 point spread. We're not even talking about a field goal difference on the betting line right now. And then a game that is somehow even closer than that, Notre Dame and Georgia wrap us up New Year's Day, 8:45 in New Orleans, Louisiana at the Sugar Bowl. The Dogs laying a single point, damn near a pick'em game. This is, to me, a very interesting game because Notre Dame, like this feels like the game that has built the narrative that Notre Dame falls down in big games, that Notre Dame can't get up for when they play the SEC, the Big Ten teams, etc. A lot of people believe Marcus Freeman changes that narrative, and it really just comes down to Carson Beck ain't there, and that changes everything for Kirby Smart and the Dogs. Still an aggressive defense, still going to pin the ears back, still probably a little bit more capable across the defensive line. But without Carson Beck, can Georgia get it done?
Yeah, that's the question. Do you trust Notre Dame enough to beat a guy that's thrown 51 passes in college football and is starting his first real start in a playoff game? My answer to that is no. I might be silly, Rob, but I'm going Notre Dame in this one. I think the Fighting Irish get it done, and I think they keep this thing marching along.
I feel like Denton Day, and this is something that I preach against every football season when I say coming into the year, hey, I did it with Florida State this year. Do not think that what happened last year in any way, shape, or form connects to what happens this year. It's a different year in college football. But man, I'm having a hard time shaking the narrative that has been built about Notre Dame for the past all of the years.
I know it's been decades now to this point where they've built this thing up. That's hard to crack, but I'm optimistic that Marcus Freeman and his immaculate hairline is going to get it.
Denton Day hosts College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. Kind enough to join us every single week. My dude, we get back together next week and only 4 shall remain, pal. I don't know about you. I'm enjoying it.
I'm going to love it, and I can't wait for these games the next 48-ish hours.
Listen, if we need to connect your fiance and my wife for like a New Year's Day emotional support group for football widows, we can make that happen, bud.
Yeah, well, I'll run it by her and see how she's feeling about it. We can make it happen.
Denton Day, my man, enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the games tomorrow. Let's do it again next week, partner. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
The legendary Denton Day, host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM, kind enough to join us here on The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. TV ratings are in. The NFL remains king as the 2 Saturday NFL games on December 21st averaged double the viewership of the 2 college games they were up against. SMU and Penn State averaged 6.4 million viewers against 15.5 mil for Kansas City and Houston. Clemson, Texas drew 8.6 versus Baltimore versus Pittsburgh's 15.4 million. The 2 college games not against NFL matchups, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Tennessee, Ohio State, averaged just under 14 million viewers. The 4 games combined averaged 10.6 mil, higher than all but 4 games in the regular season. The Bills have nothing to play for this weekend, already locked into the 2 seed, but will start MVP candidate Josh Allen anyway in order to maintain his consecutive start streak. Allen will start his 105th consecutive game dating back to his rookie year, the 11th longest streak amongst quarterbacks all time, and the longest active by more than double. And guard Russell Westbrook of the Nuggets became just the 3rd player in NBA history to record a perfect triple-double with 0 turnovers and 100% shooting from the field last night in a Nuggets win over the Jazz, 132-121. All right, guys, I went dramatically late on that segment and have to run through this break. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. right, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there, y'all.
Suffering from congestion and start feeling better again with Navage. Brand new look, same great product.
WORD Spartanburg.
WFBC HD3, the official sports voice of the Upstate family. Odyssey Sports Station.
Check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents freedom real. Yeah.
Unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show.
And off we go into hour number 3. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Brown with you this lovely New Year's Eve. Great to have you. Rolling solo today. If you want to jump in, 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. Working on getting the text line up and going. We are in the process of switching over the text line as it stands right now when we come back in the new year, which will be on Thursday. When we come back in the new year, you will text the same number as you are calling, 844-326-3663. You will text the same number as you are calling. We will have that set up for you in the new year. Working on the actual rollover process is happening right now. And hopefully we'll have that up and running by the time we come back. So stay tuned. To those of you that text the show, stay tuned for that. And we will let you know when we get that all set up and ready. In the meantime, the phone line is open, 844-326-3663. You can tweet me if you are a Twitterer. That is simple to do. You can hit me up at The Rob Brown Show, at The Rob Brown Show. And then you can get it, everybody on the Fan Upstate. I had not heard this promo from my dear friends Cole Bryson and Diesel on Wire to Wire, but I just heard it. I'm going to play it for you, and then I'm going to respond. So there's my dear friends, Cole and Diesel. Diesel referring to me as an activist because I wanted this. I want to be abundantly clear in addressing a couple of things here. First and foremost, I love Cole and Diesel. They're two of my favorite people. All right. We're just going to butt heads on this. But I do love these two gentlemen. You should listen to Wire to Wire. They return on Thursday. Couple things. Number one, the first claim that Cole made in his take there. College athletics was not designed. Okay. So I don't, and things change. Things change. And the realization that has been made about exactly how much these athletes are worth when you are looking at television contracts that are going around for hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's the athletes that we watch. I am willing to bet. I might be wrong. I'm not, but I might be wrong. How many of you have ever tuned in to watch the I don't know, a meeting of conference directors? How many of you have ever tuned into that? I'm willing to bet the answer is some of you. Some of you, but not enough that a TV network would hand out $1 gazillion for it, right? Anybody? No? Yeah, didn't think so. Number 2, just because something was set up a certain way doesn't mean when the actual valuation of the work that has been done is completed and you find out that a thing that you were doing for X dollars is actually worth way more than that, it's suddenly a bad thing, right? Now, Diesel goes on and makes it sound like my goal was to destroy college football. And the way that I elected to do that was to create a world in which, quote, these players are holding their teams hostage. Then I have an idea for the schools and the peeps who feel that way. Don't give them the money. I guess this is my whole takeaway is then don't give them the money. If you feel like it is such a bad thing, then don't give them the money. If you feel like it's not worth it, then don't give them the money. This is, are we not, and I could be wrong about this, are we not a free market country and economy? Is that not where we are? See, because I hear Diesel running endorsements on this channel, just like I do. And do you know what happens? People come to the radio station and they say, hey, we really like that cat Diesel. And we would like to give him additional American dollars for him to talk about our product. We would like to give him American dollars to advertise our product on our behalf. And Diesel, I assume, gladly takes that money and takes it all the way to the bank. Doesn't have an issue if somebody comes in and says, I would like to give you more money to advertise my, if Diesel's advertising for, Bob's Used Cars, and Diesel is making, as he does because he's Diesel, $275,000 a year to advertise Bob's Used Cars. And then one day, John's Used Cars calls and says, hey, we'd like to give you $500,000 to advertise for John's Used Cars. Diesel has the option to say, nope, Bob's been with me with a long time. I'm going to keep rolling with Bob. Or to go, yeah, bleep that. They're going to give me almost twice as much money. I'm going to do that. I'm going to move over there. I'm going to go advertise for John now. Here's one spot where people provide a service, playing football on behalf of the university. And you can make the argument that, well, they are being compensated, as many of you have. They are being compensated, Rob. They're being compensated in the form of an education. Okay, wonderful. And if this school over here is willing to provide me with the same education and also $45,000 a month, why would I not take that? Right? Why would I not take that? That would be silly. Why is this the one group of people that we don't like this happening with? It is the one group of people. Because here's the thing. Specifically with Cole Bryson. Again, a dear friend of mine, was on the phone with him yesterday. I love Cole. I really do. But see, here's the thing. Cole is I'm going to say, I don't think I'm outing him here. And if I am, he'll live. I promise. Cole's a pretty classical conservative type of dude. I am aware. I'd be willing to bet there's not a lot of places outside of college athletics where Cole grabs a mic and goes, yeah, I don't think that the free market should be allowed to just work unregulated like this. Now, that's not to say, this is the one spot. That's not to say Cole thinks we should just have anarchy in the streets and people should be allowed to do whatever they want. I don't pretend to know every single one of Cole's political beliefs and ideologies. What I'm saying is Cole works for a company where he does work in a particular line of business, and he does so for X amount of dollars per month. If somebody else called Cole and said, hey, instead of doing that job that you were working on over there, I'd like you to come do a job for me. And in return, I'm going to give you all of this money, all these dollars to make that happen. Cole's going to take that check. Why is this one group of people that we have a problem with it? I'm not trying to destroy college football. I'm simply saying that if a kid, like anybody else in America, is offered X amount of dollars to do a thing, why is it bad that they do the thing? And don't hit me with, well, it just kind of makes it unfair. It's always been that way. See, this is the part that people like Cole and Diesel, who I love, Taylor Swift heart hand emoji. These are the concept that happens here is that they are perfectly willing to address how the way it's done now, where players benefit, is ruining college sports, and never once address the fact that it's always been that way. It's just now the players get some money in a pocket. Now the players have autonomy over themselves. Now the players have authority over themselves, and they have not in years gone by. I don't understand why it's that complicated. I don't understand why it's so complicated that I'm getting called out in promos as an activist who's ruining college football. I'm really not. There is one difference, and one difference alone. The players get the hand in the pot now. The people that you are actually tuning in to see get a hand in the pot. In years gone by, we never had a problem with the schools utilizing players to advertise their product in their school. The thing that never gets discussed is that the schools and the conferences for years and years and years have made their profit and their money. Now, I would also say to many athletes, if there are no businesses that actively choose to engage in NIL trade with you, that's a you problem. I don't think there should be an obligation for businesses and schools to do that. Now, I understand the Title IX implications. I am a Title IX supporter. I think that that's a good thing. But if a school can organize it in a way where this player can make this much money and people are willing to put that there to get that guy to come play there, how is that any different? I'm going to go ahead and promise you that if tomorrow Diesel got a phone call from the largest rock and roll station in America, and they said, Diesel, we'd like to pay you $1 million a year to come here and spin records, he's gone, right? He's gone. And nobody's going to call Diesel and go, I can't believe you're being disloyal. Radio wasn't designed, music radio back in my day, music radio used to be set up back in the day. It used to be set up in a way that, DJs would spend years and years and years in a market. DJs would spend all this time in this market. And in that time, DJs would become personal with their communities, and they would become ingrained members and important members in the voice of the community and blah, 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 blah. And Diesel would say, bleep all that. I'm going to Dallas or Wichita or what, I don't know where the biggest music station is, but you get the point. He'd be gone. Nothing is ruined. Nothing is different. I don't know why we're pretending like this is all different. There is only one difference, and that is now the players get a bit of the profit. Why is that bad? Activists like Rob Brown, this is never designed. Okay, a lot of things weren't designed certain ways. When cars were initially designed, they didn't have seatbelts, but then we went, it's probably a good idea. Probably a good idea to put seatbelts in there so that people don't go flying across interstates every time they hit a raccoon. We should probably put a seatbelt in this thing. How a thing is designed to operate doesn't mean that's how it's obligated to operate. I'm going to be a super, super, super nerd for just a second. Super nerd for just a second. I'm a science guy. You all know this about me. I've never made it a secret. One of my favorite things in biology is whales. Whales came from a group of land-dwelling mammals a gazillion years ago. One of my favorite ancient mammals is Pakicetus. That is one of the forefathers of modern whales. They were land-dwelling creatures with legs, and then they made their way into the ocean. And then over the years and years and years, obviously, as they became more aquatic-based, whales lost their hind legs, except for, here's a fun thing, they didn't. Their actual legs are still tucked inside of their big old whale body. And you know what those legs do now? They were designed, they were evolved as legs, but they're not legs anymore. You know what they are now? Now they utilize as pinchers so that whales can do the deed. They took these legs that were no longer of use to them. They took these legs that no longer mattered because they live in the ocean and they have tails, and they evolved into, now when whales copulate, their little whale legs under their blubber, they kind of like stick out and they act as pinchers and they embrace so that the whales stick together while they're doing the old whale unskinny bop, right? How a thing is designed doesn't mean that's how it has to stay. It can be run in different ways, and sometimes you figure out better ways to do it. Now, our argument is you don't like it. That's what this is. Our argument is you don't like it. And I've said 100 times, the solution's right there in front of you, fellas. Contracts. Have these NIL deals, get in front of courts, argue the legality of contracts for NIL deals, and start doing contracts. Start making contracts where, hey, we're going to give you this NIL deal, and it's going to be for this much money, but we're only going to give it to you if you stay for 2 seasons or 4 years, or you do this or you do that or whatever. Every other job, and that's what this is now, a job. Every other job has contracts. So have a contract. When I got here and I started working this job, I signed a contract. And my contract says, here are the things that you are allowed to do and not to do. And I had the option of going, you know what? I don't agree with those terms, so I'm not going to sign this contract and work here. Or I do agree with your terms, so I'm going to sign this contract and work here. There are regulations about where I am allowed to go broadcast, where I'm allowed to go utilize my voice to do other things. There are contractual agreements that I have with the radio station that I'm not allowed to advertise these things, or I am allowed to advertise these things, but I can only advertise these things through the station. But these things over here, I can do whatever I want. And I agreed to all of these stipulations. The contracts are right there. So have the schools start figuring that out. But if they're not going to figure that out and move forward with that, it's not my problem. I am an activist only in terms of believing that when CBS and Fox and ESPN are throwing around hundreds and hundreds, there will be a $1 billion television contract in the landscape of college football at some point. If me being an activist simply means that I think the reason we tune in, that is to watch the players play, should get a slice of that, then sure, call me an activist. It's not a dirty word to me. People out there getting their hands dirty, trying to make the world a better place, I don't know why that's a bad thing. It's not a dirty word. So sure, I'm an activist. It's not ruining college football. The fact that college football didn't figure out a way to protect themselves in the NIL era, that's not the players' fault. That's college football's fault. If you want to be mad at anybody, don't be mad at activist Rob Brown. Don't be mad at me. Don't come after me for that. Go after your beloved institution of college football that couldn't figure out how to get their bleep together and prevent this from happening when they had the chance and decided instead to just go willy-nilly into it and create this landscape. That's not the players' fault, and it's not my fault. Stop blaming us. That's your beloved institution's fault. Love you, Cole. Love you, Diesel. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Ooh, almost forgot to turn my mic off before I talk to you. All right, stay right there, guys. I'm going to go reload my water bottle. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. I appreciate those of you that are being patient with me today.
Drive away now in one of our most popular models with 0% APR and 0 payments for 90 days. Only during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Offer ends January 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
Okay, so that's with bacon, cheese, lettuce, tomato, grilled onions, ketchup, and hold the pickles.
You know what you like. You wouldn't order your burger just any way. Why should your sports talk be any different? With chapters on the free Odyssey app, you can choose the topics that matter to you most. Whether it's reactions, matchup previews, injury updates, or team news, quickly find what you really care about. Your football talk, your way. Download the free Odyssey app and start listening today.
Sponsored by Compassion International.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Text or call. One number does it all. 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is the Rod Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
We had Denton Day from SiriusXM. Wow, what was that, Rob? Be a professional. Golly. We had Denton Day from SiriusXM's College Football Overtime join us earlier in the show. We talked ever so briefly about the tweet from Brett McMurphy that became a major talking point across social media yesterday. McMurphy said that they are looking at a potential shuffle in the way that they handle the college football playoff bracket. Now, not much would change except for one gigantic, overwhelming feature. And that gigantic, overwhelming feature would be the way that the bracket is seeded. McMurphy said that one thing would remain the same, and that one thing is that we would still have the 5 highest ranked college football conference champions head into the playoffs. We would still have the next 7 teams selected from an at-large pool, and that that would stay the same. The difference, however, would be in the way that the seeding in the bracket is handled. McMurphy says that the conversation is ongoing right now where the top 4 seeds would be determined based on the actual rankings. The top 4 seeds would be determined based on the final college football playoff rankings. If you're keeping track of that at home, that means this year's bracket would have set up this way. You would have had Oregon as the 1 seed, Georgia as the 2 seed, Texas, the SEC runner-up, is the 3 seed, and Penn State, the Big Ten runner-up, is the 4 seed. Those 4 teams would have received byes and would have played their first game in round 2 at the major bowl sites. The first round would have seen the 5 seed Notre Dame Fighting Irish host the number 12 Clemson Tigers. The first round would have seen the number 6 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes host the 11 seed, the Arizona State Sun Devils. The 7 seed would have been the University of Tennessee. They would have hosted ACC runners-up SMU as the 10 seed. And the final game would have been number 8 seeded Indiana hosting the 9 seed Mountain West Conference champions Boise State. So you would have still had your Big Ten champs in Oregon, your SEC champs in Georgia, your ACC champ in Clemson, your Mountain West champ in Boise State, and your Big 12 champ at Arizona State. Those are your 5 highest ranked conference champions. they would have gotten all in. You would have still had the at-large teams of Penn State, Big Ten runner-up, Texas, SEC runner-up, and then, of course, the at-larges of SMU, ACC runner-up, Notre Dame, who, unless we change it, will always be an at-large, Indiana as a at-large, Ohio State is an at-large, Tennessee is an at-large. So all of those things would have stayed the same. So because of that, you would have had this bracket completely mixed up. There's two sides to the debate that is inevitably going to rage about this if what Brett McMurphy is saying is true. And here's what it would be. It would be, on one hand, yes, we are going to reward teams that play a tougher strength of schedule. We are going to reward teams that have more competition between them and a natty. We are going to reward teams that have a tougher path. And this is what Kirk Herbstreit was talking about just a handful of days ago. When Kirk Herbstreit said, we have got to figure out a way to get the best teams in, not just the teams with the most wins. Now, obviously, those two things are going to coincide to some degree. But I think that this would go to some degree in terms of fixing that, right? Because you would end up with teams like Tennessee had a tough path to get to 9 wins. Tennessee that had a tough go of it to get there, ran into some buzzsaws, but still lost some games they should not have lost. There's still a lot there that would reward those teams. The other side of the equation, however, is that this is going to go absolutely nowhere in terms of the argument that the college football playoffs is the SEC Big Ten Invitational. Because, again, if you look at the teams that this would have benefited, if you look at the way that the playoff bracket would have been structured with this system in play, in the first round, your host sites would have been Big Ten Indiana, Big Ten Ohio State, SEC Tennessee, and Independent Notre Dame. Your 4 byes would have belonged to Big Ten Oregon, Big Ten Penn State, SEC Texas, SEC Georgia. You would have ended up with the argument that you are undertaking this structure to give even more of an advantage to the SEC and the Big Ten. This is going to make it even tougher for not the SEC and not the Big Ten to benefit. You are going to make it even more difficult for them to succeed. And frankly, that's not wrong. It's not wrong. And a lot of this has to do, obviously, with preseason rankings. A lot of it has to do with the circular ranking, as I call it. That is to say, well, if everybody in the SEC only plays everybody else in the SEC, the only thing we have to gauge against is other things in the SEC. So if I just inevitably believe the SEC is the best and nobody else can compete, then by definition, I'm going to rate them all higher than I would rank anybody else doing anything else anywhere else. It's not going to help the talking point that this is a system structured to benefit the SEC and to benefit the Big Ten. And I don't think it's an unfair criticism. Where do you land on this? 844-FANFONE, 844-326-3663. Is it more of a benefit to the big dogs who don't need more help? Or do the big dogs earn the opportunity to have a leg up advantage on getting the host sites and on getting those buys? All right, we'll switch over, talk some NFL coming up on the Rob Brown Show. Pat Boyle from the Infinity Sports Network and BetQL joining us at 9:20. All that coming up. It's the Fan Upstate.
97.7 FM Greenville. 97.1 FM Spartanburg. Upstate.
All right, guys, give me another 30 seconds. I'll be right back. We're back. Thanks for hanging out, y'all.
Mr. Green? Hi, it's all good. We got this.
This is not just help from a Walgreens pharmacist.
Oh, new prescriptions. Cool. Let me check to see. These are the lowest cost options covered by your Medicare plan.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. This is someone supporting you every step of the way. Chat with the pharmacist today to find help saving. This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
A gain scent bead story. Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said Maraca, senor, but his nose said, hey, freshest scent ever. Following his nose, Jim found a man pouring a bottle of Gain scent beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, sir, your scent Maraca smell amazing. Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain scent beads. Try Gain scent beads. Way fresher than detergent alone.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, board-certified urologist and senior vice president of men's sexual health at HIMSS. In my 12 years of practice as a reproductive urologist, I've helped many guys with ED, and it has never been more convenient to treat than it is right now, thanks to HIMSS. It really wasn't easy before. You had to take time out of your day, come to a physical office, and see a specialist like me in person. Now, through HIMSS.com, you can get world-class sexual health care and a full range of treatment options for ED through a 100% online process. It starts with a free assessment from a medical provider licensed in your state who can determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. So don't wait. Join the hundreds of thousands of guys who've gotten help for their ED through HIMSS.
To start your free online visit and find ED treatment at up to 95% off brand name prices, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit.
Your guide to the gridiron, the maestro of the matchups and the keeper of all things cool in the sports world. This is the Rob Brown Show.
Oh, yeah. Lonzo's here, too.
This is the Fan Upstate.
Short segment here as we get back on the clock. I got Pat Boyle of the Infinity Sports Network / BetQL coming up later on in the show. 9:20, we'll be joined by Patty B to talk some NFL ball. Want to talk some NFL ball here, too, because there's something very interesting happening in the NFL MVP race. Josh Allen minus 300 to win, plus 350 is Lamar Jackson right now. And then there's an outlier. Then there's Joe Burrow, who is hanging out there. The odds right now have Joe Burrow in the distance, which a lot of people find very interesting because without Joe Burrow, this Bengals team is dead and buried, yet here they are going into the last week. They need a lot of help, but still technically alive. Josh Allen's minus 300. Lamar Jackson, I said plus 250, actually plus 225. As of right now, Saquon Barkley is plus 1,600. That is what Joe Burrow is as well. Guys, the MVP is Josh Allen. Now, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. Lamar Jackson is a dude that has made me look real good over the years. When Lamar Jackson was coming out of Louisville, he was the only quarterback up until I did it with Jaden Daniels this year that I said, that guy is can't miss. That is a can't miss draft pick right there. You got to get that dude. That dude is a dude. And I was right. Lamar Jackson is a dude. But Josh Allen's the guy. Because I've got to and point out not what Josh Allen has done, but what Josh Allen has done where his team until week 16 of the regular season was alive for the 1 seed. And was alive for the 1 seed when Josh Allen started the year without a number one wide receiver. The best option he had was Keon Coleman. I love Keon Coleman. The dude's hilarious. He's very funny. He seems like an absolute bro. I'm a big Keon Coleman guy. But Keon Coleman was a rookie. Keon Coleman was a rookie who, coming out of Florida State last year, was able to utilize a little bit of extra speed to be a dog in Tallahassee in Florida State's run up to a 13-0 ACC title last year. Keon Coleman was also one of those wide receivers that I genuinely believe had a big learning curve ahead of him in the NFL. Josh Allen took that guy until Amari Cooper showed up and didn't just win games, but again, was in contention for the number 1 seed until 2 weeks ago. The next best option at the time that Josh Allen was working with there was a couple of tight ends. In Kincaid, who is a good catcher, and Dawson Knox, who is very good. But he had a couple of tight ends as his best options. And quick quiz, pencils up. Right now, how many of you can genuinely tell me, outside of Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman, another player on that Bills offense? A chunk of you are going to know James Cook, the starting running back. Who else? Give me anybody else. You can't really do it. And then you mention tied into all of that. That Keon Coleman missed a bunch of weeks with a wrist injury. Amari Cooper has been banged up off and on throughout the year. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid have both missed time. The two tight ends, explosive in that Bills offense, have both missed time. Josh Allen, I don't believe, has had more than a game or two where he has had a full complement of dudes to work around him. And yet the Bills are 13-3. The Bills are the only team to have defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills are currently sitting in the 2 seed, locked into the 2 seed, by the way, in the AFC. So Josh Allen's going to get a start this weekend to keep that most consecutive starts streak alive. He's going to play probably a series and then come out of the game. They just want to keep that streak alive for him. But Josh Allen's the MVP, because I'm going to tell you right now, I could plug, I don't know how many quarterbacks in the NFL, most of them. I think if you didn't have a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, and honestly, that might be it. And I'll go one step further. I don't know that Lamar Jackson could do in Buffalo what Josh Allen's doing right now. Honestly, I don't think he could do it. I think Joey B probably could. I don't think Lamar Jackson could. I don't think this year's Patrick Mahomes could, to tell you the truth. And for the record, before anybody starts to freak out on me, before anybody starts to go, wait a minute, Rob, aren't you the guy who says all of the time, that wins and losses are not a quarterback stat? The answer is yes. Yes, I do. I regularly say wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. As a matter of fact, showing up at some point, hopefully in the very near future, there is going to be a flag that is going to hang on the stream behind me on a daily basis that is literally going to say wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. And I am going to hang that flag because wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. They never have been. But they can be heavily influenced. That is not a change in position from me. That's not a new take. I've had that the whole time. And Josh Allen is the reason the Bills have 13 wins. Plug anybody else in there. I think there are a few quarterbacks who could step in and do what Patrick Mahomes has done this year. Josh Allen's one of them. Lamar Jackson's one of them. Joe Burrow's one of them. I think the Chiefs would still be that team without him. I don't think there's very many, if any, that could step in and do what Josh Allen is doing and has been doing for the Buffalo Bills. I don't think Lamar Jackson could do it. I don't think Patrick Mahomes could do it. And those are honestly, those are the two guys, right? Those are the two guys. So I don't know, man. Like I don't see a world that I can see the argument for Joe Burrow. I can see the argument for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is having a historic season. If Joe Burrow was putting up the numbers that Joe Burrow is putting up right now on a team that was 13-3, then Joe Burrow probably wins the MVP. But Joe Burrow is doing what Joe Burrow is doing on a team that is 500. Joe Burrow is doing what Joe Burrow is doing right now on a team that is 500. And again, it is not his fault. It is not his fault, but it kind of is what it is, man. It kind of is what it is. Just because I'm curious, I am popping Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson into a stat comparer. Just because I am quite curious as to, and I've got all these pulled up somewhere, but I want to throw them all up on one screen, just to kind of see what the vibe is. Here's what we got for, let's look at Mahomes and Josh Allen in the regular season this year. This is just this season. 16 games played for both. Josh Allen is 307 for 483. 176 incompletions. Josh Allen is throwing for a 63.6% completion percentage. Mahomes for 67.5%. Josh Allen, 37-31 through the air for 28 touchdowns and 6 picks. Mahomes, 39-28 for 26 touchdowns and 11 picks. Josh Allen has a touchdown percentage of 5.8%. Mahomes, 4.5%. Josh Allen has an interception rate of 1.2%. Mahomes, 1.9%. Josh Allen has a QBR of 101.4. Mahomes, 93.5. Josh Allen has a yards per attempt of 7.7 to Mahomes 6.8. A yards per completion of 12.2 to Mahomes 10 even. And then let's look on the ground. On the ground, Josh Allen has 531 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. Mahomes has 307 and 22. I mean, it's not even, frankly, it's not even a difference. So let's put Josh Allen then. Let's put Josh Allen up against Lamar Jackson. And I will tell you that, and I know this off the top of my head, Josh Allen does not have the statistics that Patrick Mahomes has, or excuse me, that Lamar Jackson has. The numbers are skewed in favor of Lamar Jackson. But this is also why I've said that this is the most valuable player, not the most statistically impressive player. Sorry, I unplugged my headphones. Most valuable, not most statistically impressive. Head to head. Here's what we're looking at. The Bills are 13-3. The Ravens are 11-5. Completion percentage. Jackson's is better, 67.9 to 63.6 for Allen. Pass yards, 39.55 for Lamar Jackson, 37.31 for Josh Allen. Passing touchdowns, 39 for Jackson, 28 for Allen. Interceptions, 4 for Jackson, 6 for Allen. Passing rate, 121 for Jackson, 101 for Allen. Rushing attempts, 130 to 102 in favor of Jackson. Rushing yards, 852 to 531 for Jackson. Rushing yards per attempt, 6.6 for Jackson, 5.2 for Allen. 12 rushing touchdowns for Josh Allen, 4 for Lamar Jackson. That's the difference. But context. What is the context? If I asked you right now to put your favorite quarterback on one of these teams for the opportunity to succeed, Which team you putting them on? And if you tell me it's the Ravens or you tell me it's the Bills, you're a liar. You're a liar or you don't know ball, one or the other. It is the most valuable player, not most statistically important player. I love Lamar Jackson. Lamar's won me a lot of money and a lot of credibility over the years. But what Josh Allen is doing is more with less than what Lamar Jackson is doing. If I switch these two quarterbacks, I genuinely believe the Bills are like a 9-win team and the Ravens are a 14 or 15-win team. I truly believe that. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. I got Pat Boyle. We'll ask him that same question coming up in about 20 minutes on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, stay right there. I'm going to step away for 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes. Step away for 2 minutes. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there, guys.
That's 800-575-6812. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Turn on, leave on.
All right, now is your chance to weigh in on Who won the 5 o'clock fight? Text the show 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Texter says, cook your eggs with A1. You're welcome. Never done that.
How does A1 that's heated in a pan taste?
I don't know if I'd hate that. Michael in Simpsonville says A1 bold. Way better. I have no idea what he's talking about.
So it's a flavor of A1.
You're kidding.
It's more A1-y than A1.
And I've never known about this.
We have a follow-up. Texter says, whip the A1 and eggs together. No way. I don't know. That's got to be a weird color.
Ooh,
Huh?
good.
Huh?
Okay. I'll try it then. How about that?
I mean, I'd definitely try
Let's
it.
try it.
Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Turn on, leave on. Afternoons 3 to 7 on the Fan Upstate.
Upstate. WORD.
Mahomes' 5 moves of doom. Off we go into the final hour of the show. The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful to have you here today. I am Rob Brown, rolling solo today. So if you want to jump in here, I got all the time you want. 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. That's the number. You can also get at us on the Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, at the Rob Brown Show. Or you can shoot me an email, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com. I will let you know that we are working on the text line. And when we return from our break over New Year's tomorrow, when we return, so that you can go ahead and start planning it out now, the text line and the call-in number will be the same number. You just need to save one contact in your phone at the Fan Upstate, 844-326-3663. When we get fired back up on Jan 2, because we are off tomorrow, when we fire up on Jan 2, the call-in number, 844-FANFONE, 844-326-3663, will also be the text number. So you can save one contact in your phone and send your calls and your texts to the same number. We will have that reestablished for you when we make our return on Thursday. As we mentioned, final hour of this show today. We are off tomorrow for New Year's Day, and then we will return on Thursday to get the New Year started. What are your resolutions for the new year in sports? What are your resolutions in the new year for you? What are your resolutions for the new year for your teams? What are the resolutions for the new year for your school? What are your resolutions for 2025 in the world of sports? I've got a couple of them. I am going to start with this. For my resolution for me personally, it is going to be to get to more games. It's going to be to get to more games. This past season, obviously, was a very interesting one for me. Got married, was obviously kind of wrapped up in all of that all year. It was a hectic year for the studio and the station because of the growth we're going through right now. There was a lot that needed attention. Obviously, dramatically ramped up my national hosting responsibilities on BetQL. So there was a lot of that this year. And a lot of that, it just kind of cut into my ability to go to games. And I genuinely believe, I've said this on the air many, many times in years gone by, in opposition to many hosts that I have worked with in the past, I don't think you can do this job without watching games. And watching them at home on the television is obviously great, but I think there is a massive advantage, in my opinion. There is a massive advantage to going and seeing games in person. And I think that massive advantage is that you can really get an idea, a better idea, frankly. You can get a better idea of what is genuinely happening around a game, around a team, right? You can get a better idea of what the mentality is in the stadium, what the mentality of the team is. I think that there are ways to read a team that you may not be able to get from watching on television. I think that there are sideline interactions that are obviously never going to be picked up by the camera that you can look at. I think there's a lot of very good reasons that you would want to be at a game than watch a game. And I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about the NFL. I'm talking about college football. I'm talking about basketball. I'm talking about soccer. There's something about it. There is, and I've said this before, and they know this. This isn't a shock. There is only one team in town that I won't work games for, and it's the Greenville Triumph. And I love the Triumph. Chris, Doug, Joe, Rick, all the players, they've been so kind to me. And that's for two reasons. Number one, you can't take a break from watching a soccer game. There's no break from watching a soccer game. The action does not stop. There's no other sport that is true about. When I work a hockey game, the action frequently stops, and I can kind of start setting up for whatever the next thing is. With a soccer game, that's not how it works. The game is always in motion. And so you can't really make it to where you can be doing something else. And if I'm going to cover that team, I want to be able to cover that team by watching the game. With Clemson, with South Carolina, with the Panthers, I went to 2 Panthers games this year. I actually did not make it to a Clemson or a Carolina football game this year, with the exception of the ACC title game. I was obviously down there for that one. But I did not make it to the Palmetto Bowl. I did not make it to any of the Clemson or Carolina home games this year, which is massively disappointing. I think you've got to go eyeballs on games. And I think by attending games, you can get a better vibe. When you look at the sideline while the ball is in play, you can get a better vibe and a read on what the team actually is, who the team actually is. And I think it's important. So resolution for myself this year, you guys can hold me to it. Resolution for Rob Brown this year is 100% attend more games, go to more games, be at more games to get a better read on the teams that I'm covering. Now, some resolutions for the teams that we cover. I will start with the local teams. I will start with the Greenville Triumph. And all of these, by the way, come from positions of love. Taylor Swift heart hand emoji. I will start with the Greenville Triumph. Emphasis on scoring goals this year. You had some great goal scorers this year. Castro, etc. Real good goal scorers this year. But they kind of came in bunches, right? There would be stretches of games that were finishing at 2-0, 1-0. We're on the wrong side of them. I would love to see a renewed emphasis on finding a true 9. I would love to see a renewed emphasis on a little bit less in terms of passing around the top of the box and waiting for the perfect shot and more creating shots. That's what I'm looking for. That's the emphasis for the Greenville Triumph in 2025. I would like to see less working on creating the perfect shot and more creating shots and taking them. Law of averages says you pop off more shots on goal, you're going to score more. I think that, and this was a John Harkes instilled philosophy of we want the highest available percentage shot. And I get that. I'm a basketball guy at heart. I get that. But I think there comes a point in time where, not every time, but there comes a point in time where sometimes quantity does matter more than quality. Sometimes a barrage is way to go. A good sniper shot can change a battle, but an artillery barrage changes the battlefield. And that's what I want to see happen. As far as the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, it's almost the exact same criticism. More physicality moving forward. I want to see a team that plays more on the forecheck. I want to see a team that plays more physically, more aggressively. If you can get to that, I think this team's got all the talent in the world, but I think this team is hesitant. I want more selfishness. I want to see a Greenville Swamp Rabbit team that spends more time demanding control of the pace instead of asking for it. I think that's been the slip for this team the last couple of weeks. I think they have been asking for control and trying to play their game instead of forcing their game on Jacksonville or South Carolina or whoever we're lined up against. And I think that's got to get fixed. That's going to be my big criticism. By the way, Mark Benetti, voice of the Swamp Rabbits, will join us on Thursday when we return. I'll give you some more resolutions for Clemson and South Carolina, for the Carolina Panthers, for myself, and for the station in the final segment of the show. But coming up next, my dog, Pat Boyle, who is a host for the BetQL Network and a host on the Infinity Sports Network, is going to join us to talk NFL football next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, let me step away and get Pat Boyle on the phone. I will come right back. Stay right there for me. We'll talk some NFL up next.
$1.99. But hurry, it's a limited time offer.
Always streaming wherever you are on the Odyssey app. Make the Fan Upstate a favorite.
Excited to welcome on to the phone lines now a young man that I've had the pleasure of working with on the BetQL network for a couple of years now. A young man that we have had on the show before. We'll have on the show again. I've joined him on his. He's joined me on mine. Why? Because I got to tell you, this cat knows ball, and I love talking a little NFL with my dog, Pat Boyle. You can hear him on the Infinity Sports Network. You can hear him on the BetQL app and about a gazillion other places because he, like me, loves work and hates sleep, or at least that's what we keep lying and saying to our bosses. Pat Boyle, what's up, you handsome devil, you?
Brown, what's up, baby? You know, it's not a home and home until I come to the Fan Upstate in beautiful South Carolina, so I am delighted to be with you here, man. I've had you on Gridiron Game Day, Sundays on the Infinity Sports Network, 12 to 8 p.m. Eastern. You've been on there 3 separate times. We have indeed worked together plenty of times on BetQL, so it's only fitting that a day before 2025, I come back to the beautiful Fan Upstate in South Carolina. It's good to be with you, man.
It's good to have you, brother. It's good to have you. I believe, is this the I was thinking about it because I know I've had you on some other spots I've done before, but is this your first time on the actual show?
Absolutely, man. I am I'll keep it PG, but yes, I am making my debut. I was going to say something else, but
dude, first off, that's a huge mistake on my part, and you have my apologies, Pat. Well, and the unfortunate part for you is now that you've said yes, you just got to join the regular lineup, buddy. That's just how it's going to have to be.
I guess that's fine with me, right? I mean, how could I turn down your offer in any way? That's like, getting an offer to play middle linebacker at the great Clemson and telling Dabo Swinney, oh, you know what? Sorry, coach, I'm going to go ahead and pass. No, of course, I'll be happy to join the regular lineup.
You're already on the show, buddy. You don't have to kiss any butts. You're good. You've already made it. Pat Boyle from BetQL and the Infinity Sports Network joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. I do want to get into the NFL here in just a minute, Patty B, but I would be remiss if I did not get your thoughts on the 4 college football playoff games coming up over the next 2 days. So let's start very quickly, just kind of your overall thoughts. You can hit me from a gambling perspective. You can hit me from just a perspective about the game itself. I think I'm kind of changing the way I approach these games. I was looking for drama and maybe even a couple of upsets in round number 1. Round number 2, dude, I'm just going to say I'm picking the better team. I got Penn State as a heavy favorite today, and I think that's the obvious pick. I'm probably going to do the same for the other 3. So let's start with tonight, Penn State and Boise State. Where are you going?
Yeah, well, I just hope that it's not a blowout. Otherwise, I'm going to have to hear Kirk Herbstreit basically say that, brand recognition and who cares about wins and losses. Let's just get the teams with the most money in. I mean, my God, dude, have some feel. And I love Kirk. And you and I talked about him on BetQL last week. But, I mean, just totally clueless in terms of how he was speaking about these games. Yeah, sure, they were 4 blowouts. They weren't great. I don't think anybody who watched those games were like, wow, this is awesome stuff. This is absolutely why they should have went to 12 teams. No, they should have went to 8. We never needed 12. But we went to 12. You had 4 games not at a neutral site, by the way, which are where these, the rest of the games are going to be, home campuses in December. That is an unbelievable advantage. So, yeah, 4 blowouts. Wasn't great. Who cares? We've got 4 more games over the next 2 days, 2 semifinals, and a national championship. I mean, we were getting blowouts. It felt like 60 to 70% of the time anyway, when it was only 4 teams. So I was never happy that the greedy folks at the NCAA and college football never cared about paying players, and now all of a sudden they want to get everybody involved in 12 teams. Whatever. I could go on my soapbox about that forever. With the games themselves, I think Boise State can keep this close tonight. I don't think Penn State. I think again, from a gambling perspective, which is what you and I also do, I think the spread is just about right. It should be in between 10 and 14. I wish I was getting a couple more points on Ashton Genty and the Broncos, but I don't think that Penn State's offensive and defensive line is just going to maul Boise State like everybody thinks. Let's not forget, I think it's too lazy of an argument to say, well, who did Boise State play, right? Everybody in the Mountain West. Let's not forget week 2, they took Oregon all the way down to the couple of final minutes and lost 37-34. where they ran the ball effectively. Oregon's undefeated. So if there was anybody else who would line up against Oregon and lost by 3, I don't know, like Ohio State who lost by 1 on the final play, now they're favorites against them, what would we be saying? I think this offensive line for Boise State is good. I think they can hold their own weight. Jeanty is phenomenal. You're going to see an NFL caliber running back, and a great one at that, when he's running the rock today. And then I just hope that Boise State's quarterback can, not throw 2 pick sixes in the first half like SMU did. So I think Boise State keeps it close tonight. Penn State's got an elite defense. It ultimately probably wins them the game, but I do think this game, and who knows, if you said any game was going to be close last week, you were dead wrong. I do think that Boise State keeps this game close.
We're going to talk about the other 3 games, but I want to focus in on this one for one more second with Pat Boyle from the Infinity Sports Network and BetQL. I agree with everything you've said. The one thing I'm intrigued by is what Penn State did to Kevin Jennings and SMU last week. They basically said, look, dude, you're not beating us with the legs. Clemson in the ACC title game, it got close, Pat Boyle, because I thought Clemson decided to drop back into kind of a soft zone defense, and Kevin Jennings basically had to run to the field where he wanted to go. Penn State did the opposite. They put a man on him and said, no matter where he goes, you are in him. And then they just started getting aggressive and trying to pin him back. If they do that to Boise State with Ashton Jeanty and try to remove him, does Boise State have enough weapons elsewhere to punish them for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's ultimately what we're going to find out tonight. But I do think that they're not all Ashton Jeanty's the star. He's the guy that basically rewrote a couple of different record books this year and arguably should have won the Heisman. That's my opinion. He should have won the Heisman. I mean, if you're not going to give it to a running back who puts up these kind of eye-popping video game numbers, when the hell are you ever going to give it to a running back? So I don't think it's just all him, though. I do think that Boise State's offense can get some separation against Penn State's defense. And again, even within the run game, it's not like, Boise State, from the games that I've watched, they've got some nice schemes. Like, they're going to find ways to have guards and tackles pulling, to get after the Penn State athletic edge rushers and linebackers and open up some space for Jeanty. But I do think that if Boise State's at least able to stay somewhat on schedule, if they can get themselves into 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, it does open up the playbook a little bit more. I just think this team is underrated, and I think solely because they play in the Mountain West, and outside of playing Oregon, they haven't played anybody. I think that they could give Penn State a scare. Ultimately, I would be stunned if they win the game outright, but I do think that they can keep it within the 11 points.
All right, let's jump up to the first game from tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Texas laying 13 points over the Big 12 champions, Arizona State. Cam Scadaboo said yesterday, no one can stop me. And here's the thing. I think he might be right. This kid's an absolute stud. The problem is they can stop a lot of other guys on the Sun Devil offense. I don't know that I love the number at 13, Pat Boyle, but I do think Texas wins this one with relative comfort.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love it either, but I would, if you had made me pick a side, I would pick Texas. I just think they've got the best secondary in college football. They have the best secondary in the country. They've got a couple of studs at corner, and I just think that any separation Arizona State is going to try to get, that there's not going to be much. So I think the passing game is going to take a huge hit, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Cam Scadaboo to do it with his legs, and then also for Arizona State to get the ground game going, which, they're kind of a balanced attack this year when you watch their games and when you look at the numbers. But man, if their passing attack is taken out of this and they have to keep up with Texas, who, let's be honest, I think even on a bad day, Texas puts up 30 against this team, if not 35, maybe touching 40. So can Arizona State get to 30 to 35 points? I don't think so. I don't. I think Texas wins this game comfortably.
In the exact same boat. So let's jump up to the afternoon game, Ohio State and Oregon, a couple of Big Ten foes that have already met once this year. Oregon just escapes getting the better of the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes out for revenge. And after that Michigan loss, I think everybody was ready to write off Ohio State, but they wiped the floor with Tennessee. And what I thought was going to be really maybe the only game in the first round that was going to be genuinely competitive, Pat Boyle. Does Ryan Day have this team ready to roll against the Ducks team that's already got the better of him once? I promise I can do this.
Yeah, I would say this is my favorite game of the quarterfinals, and it's my favorite game to bet. It's going to be my favorite game to watch. I love Oregon, and I'll keep it as simple as I can here, Rob Brown. They've got the better quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, Heisman winner, better than Will Howard, and they've got the better coach. And if you don't agree with that, I don't know what to tell you. Dan Lanning is a better motivator. He's a better preparer. He is better with scheming, and he is just an overall better in-game coach. And he proved that with the great poll that he had at the end of that game when these two met the first time. Dan Lanning's a better coach than Ryan Day, and Dylan Gabriel's a better quarterback than Will Howard. That's as simple as I can put it. I know the Buckeyes have some dogs, Jack Sawyer and some other dudes in that linebacking core that's going to make it difficult for Oregon to run the ball. But whereas Ohio State's got a great defense, Gabriel is just going to be able to pick them apart with some nickel and dime passes against the Ohio State. If they go cover 2 or cover 3, they've got plenty of great receivers that can find the spaces. I mean, what did he throw for in the first game? 350 yards. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but Ohio State's got a great defense, and Oregon still was able to move the ball very effectively all game long. I don't think anything has changed. And again, better quarterback, better coach. That's what I'm going to lean on. I am stunned Oregon are underdogs. I'm riding with the Ducks to beat Ohio State again.
I like that. Undefeated. I like that. Outright money line pick from Pat Boyle. And then we wrap it up tomorrow night before we flip to just a minute or two of NFL talk with Pat Boyle from the Infinity Sports Network. Notre Dame and Georgia. The Dogs laying a single point in this one. Pat Boyle, I said this to our buddy Denton Day earlier in the show as well. This is a game that it feels like everything's going right for the Irish. You've also got no Carson Beck for the Georgia Bulldogs, which kind of shifts the dynamic. Happened late in the year in the last end of that Texas SEC championship game, meaning that this is Texas basically with a brand new starting quarterback in the biggest game of the year for that team. But, man, I'm having a hard time shaking the last couple of decades of Notre Dame falls apart in big games against SEC. So where do you come out on this one?
Well, Rob, I know you know. I don't know if the beautiful folks of South Carolina and the fan upstate and all your listeners around the country and worldwide on the Odyssey app, if they know that I'm one of the biggest Notre Dame fans on planet Earth, my friend. And when it comes to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this year, since that loss to Northern Illinois, and when you couple that with the loss 2 years ago at home to Marshall and some of the in-game catastrophic mistakes Marcus Freeman has made as a head coach, I'm sorry. I'm going to be the worst fan of my own team until this team proves otherwise. I don't think they can do it. I don't believe in them. I want to be proved wrong. Maybe it's me just not getting my hopes up, right? Like Murphy's Law, what can happen, what can go wrong, will go wrong. That's the kind of feel that I have with this Notre Dame team. I have not been, maybe it's just me. Maybe I have PTSD. Maybe I need to go see a doctor. Maybe I need to go see a therapist. All of that's probably true. But I can't get over that loss back to Northern Illinois. And that shows me that that's a team that wasn't exactly serious about where they wanted to go this year. And sure, they have ripped off, what is it now, 11 straight wins since. They dominated Indiana. I mean, it was 27-3. That basically told you everything you need to know with the final couple of minutes left before a couple of garbage time touchdowns. Notre Dame's defense is elite. Yes, they've got one of the best secondaries in football as well. And if they had Benjamin Morrison, who's a first-round stud corner who got hurt and out for the season, maybe I would say that he could be a difference maker going up against Georgia or going up against in the next round if they get there against Penn State or whoever it might be. But I have a real tough time believing in Riley Leonard to be able to throw the football if they get into some third and long situations with, you look at all the NFL caliber talent that's on this Georgia defense, I'm hard-pressed to think that Notre Dame's going to be able to keep themselves in 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 3s. So I think there's going to be a lot of 3rd and longs and a lot of 2nd and 8s or 2nd and 9s because they're not going to be able to run the ball that effectively. And then Riley Leonard, throw the football for first downs, make some clutch decisions, and not just do it with your legs. I can't buy into that. So, and then Georgia's got their own problems, man. I mean, we've seen this defense as good as they should be. I mean, give up a bunch of points to Mississippi State, one of the worst teams in the country, and Carson Beck, who underperformed all year, and now it's Gunnar Stockton, who, yes, played well against Texas. If anything, I think this is maybe like a 17-13 type game. I would bet the under. I don't like either side, and I cannot myself, Rob Brown, get up and make myself believe that Notre Dame can win this game until I see it.
Pat Boyle here on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Up. Say, all right, another minute or two, and we'll turn you loose to get back up on the road to the Poconos. Let's talk. Right. I love that. In fact, as cliche as it is in every movie and sitcom I've ever watched, Pat Boyle, this is the first time anybody's ever said to me, I'm heading to the Poconos. Is that like a real thing? Everybody does it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I work at WFN in New York City. You know that. I live in New Jersey, so and when it's cold out and I want to do some skiing, what better than to head to the Poconos, right? And do the whole fake Pennsylvania accent when I say it. But yeah, man, it's a good time. You get an Airbnb right in the woods, and you got a couple of different ski lodges. I'll be going to Big Bear tomorrow, and break my ass, maybe hopefully not break my leg a couple of times falling down the slope. Probably go on the Black Diamond, which I have no business being on, but yeah, man, it's a great time. You get the fam, you all cooped up inside a fire, watch the college football games, have a couple of libations, and off you go.
It's the Pat Boyle way. I'm on vacation. I'm in the Poconos. Still got football to watch. All right, big dog. Let me throw one at you real quick before we get you out of here. We were talking about the MVP race earlier. It's basically at this point Allen or Lamar Jackson. My argument is, if it's me, it's Josh Allen. I think that dude is the definition right now of doing more than less. Came into the year without a true number one outside of Keon Coleman. Finally got Amari Cooper. Then Coleman goes down for a number of weeks with a wrist. He's been basically working with two tight ends, alternating between being on the injured list and active as his number two guy. I don't think it can be anybody but Josh Allen, but there's a lot of folks down here in South Carolina making a big push for Lamar Jackson to take that spot. Where are you on that debate?
Yeah, I think honestly, this is probably the most it's probably the dumbest MVP year we've had in a while, and I don't say that as pessimistic, oh, who cares? Yeah, of course the award matters, especially for people that bet on it, especially for people's legacies and whatnot. But you can make a legit argument for four different guys, right? Josh Allen, I think you said the perception that he doesn't have a lot around him, where you said Keon Coleman was hurt for weeks, Dalton Kincaid hurt for weeks. How many people think Khalil Shakir is an actual number one receiver? They got Amari Cooper. He basically hasn't touched the ball in the last 4 weeks. And yeah, James Cook is a great running back. He's got the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL this year. But yeah, it feels like, Josh Allen's got to do it all himself. And, you watch the games. Yes, at times that is the case. I think he's got a cannon for an arm. We know how much of a, bulldozer that he is running the football. He's the best weapon. I think him and Lamar Jackson are the two best weapons you could have in football. And so I think that's definitely a great reason why. But you look at Lamar Jackson, he's put up more yards, he's put up more touchdowns. I mean, you see him, and it's the most athletic player that I've ever watched, right? I didn't grow up watching Deion Sanders. I didn't watch Barry Sanders. I didn't watch some of the other great athletes of all time that have played this game, that have played sports. But Lamar Jackson, for me, is probably the best athlete that I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm 30. So, I mean, that's saying something. So what he's able to do on a football field, the yardage he's put up, but then again, what does wins mean for a quarterback stat? Josh Allen's got more. The Ravens are most likely going to be they're going to be the 3 seed. The Bills are the 2, and they've got probably more impressive wins, even though Lamar Jackson won that head-to-head matchup and the Ravens crushed the Bills earlier this year. Then you got Joe Burrow. I mean, how do you blame Joe Burrow's defense for keeping him from an MVP? The guy might throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. Or he's throwing for 40. He might throw for 5,000 yards. And if not for one of the worst defenses in football, they're in the playoffs, and they still could be. But what Burrow has done is nothing shy of unbelievable. Oh, and then, Saquon Barkley, who's 100 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. And look at what the Eagles have done, even when Jalen Hurts hasn't played. They won a game with Kenny Pickett. They won a game with Tanner McKee. They crushed the Cowboys with Tanner McKee. I think we all realize how invaluable Saquon Barkley is. So I think it's a dumb MVP this year. And I do ultimately think Josh Allen's going to win it, Rob, and it's probably the right decision. But you could really make, if any of these 4 guys won it, I don't think I'd be pissed. And I'm sure people will make fake outrage, but I wouldn't be.
No one in our industry makes up hot takes just for the sake of generating fake outrage, Pat Boyle. We're all better than that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Pat Boyle is a legendary, iconic host on the BetQL Network, on the Infinity Sports Network. And now, whether he likes it or not, is going to be a regular guest on the Rob Brown Show moving forward. My man, be safe in your travels, big dog. Can't wait to jump on a mic with you again, partner. Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely, brother. I'll have to get you on WFAN and the Big Apple, too, next time I'm hosting as well. So
Listen,
can't wait to chat with you many more times.
Anytime, brother. I will let you know the lady and I coming up there probably in March because we got a tattoo to put on hating-ass Mario's ass, and we're going to make it a week in the city to do up on that.
Hell yeah. Can't wait for that. Hey, Happy New Year, brother, to you, to all your listeners, and everybody that supports the Fan Upstate and Odyssey. It's we're phenomenal. 2025 is coming, brother.
You know it. Pat freaking Boyle joining us here on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. We got to run to our final break of the hour. When we come back here in just a minute, I'll give you a couple more resolutions for the new year for my favorite teams and yours. And we'll send you off into a New Year's Eve party to get set up for 2025. All coming up on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
I'm Tony Kaziri with your sports update on the Fan Upstate. College basketball, South Carolina.
All right, guys, be right back. Don't go anywhere. Thank you. You're all amazing people. Love you. Thanks for hanging in, dudes and dudettes.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
What's better than 1 win? 3 wins. With Straight Savings, you keep your own phone, get 1 line for only $25 a month with real unlimited data, and get rewarded with a $200 phone credit after 12 months. It's a win-win-win. Head to Walmart or visit straighttalk.com today. Switch to Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Straight Savings Plan enrollment requires compatible unlocked device and new line of service. Bonus device credit requires 12 months of active service. Offer ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. Taxes and fees apply. For network management practices, see Straight Talk's terms and conditions.
Rise and shine, sports fans. That's great! Grab your coffee and get a jolt of sports on the Rob Brown Show with Lonzo. Now, weekday morning 6 to 10 on the Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show continues, wrapping up here on the Fan Upstate. Thanks for being here, my dudes and dudettes. Spectacular to have you. We are off tomorrow morning. We will return on Thursday to begin the new year with a bang. And I'm looking at you guys in the stream right now. What are your sports resolutions for 2025? I've given you a few. I have started with, for me personally, my resolution in 2025 is to attend more games. I demand of myself to be at more games in person. I think it is important to be at more games in person. I think that there are ways to learn more by watching a team away from what is happening on the field, right? Like it is not, yes, it is obviously very important to be able to see what is happening on the football field, on the basketball court, whatever. It is another thing to be able to see what this team is. It is another thing to see what the team is. It is more important to be able to look at what the team is when they are on the sideline together, when they are talking to each other, when they are interacting with each other away from the action on the field. I think you can get a much better idea of exactly who the team is. I think you can get a much better idea of what the team is. Again, maybe not per se in the locker room, but how a team interacts with each other in the locker room. You'll learn a lot about that on the field itself. So with that being said, I think I am going to make a resolution of myself to attend more games in person. That one is me personally. I have started to give a couple for some of our local teams. I started with the Greenville the Greenville Triumph. I think there needs to be an emphasis on quantity of goal shooting opportunities. I think there needs to be an emphasis on quantity of shots on goal. I think there needs to be an emphasis on not just trying to send the ball around and wait for the perfect opportunity. I'd like to see a lot more guys that put shots on frame and let's see what happens. Hockey team, same thing. Hockey team. Spend less time trying to create these artistic shots. Go in the game. Stop spending time trying to create these moments where you are doing something incredible to score a goal. Just go score the goal. Just go get the goal scored. Take over. Be physical. Demand that the game takes place at your pace, not at the pace of the other squad. Some other ones. I think for Clemson, this one is not going to be all that shocking, I don't think. In fact, if anything, this one's going to be an eye roll lame. But I think for Clemson football, it's going to be a lot of embrace modern college football. Embrace modern college football. And this is not me saying, oh, you gotta start slamming the transfer portal. This is more along the lines of, I think you've got to help push the NIL. I think you've got to help create opportunities for players. I do think it is transfer portal. Again, it is great that Dabo went in and got a couple of guys, but you got to start getting guys. The guys you're getting right now are guys that are coming on board, and we're all like, who? Guy out of Southeast Missouri. And that's not to say that Tristan Smith can't show up and be an absolute dude. by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm saying is we have got to get to a spot where you are not just getting transfers, but you are getting the transfers that are currently going to Georgia. You got to get the transfers that are currently going to Ohio State. Those are the guys you've got to go back to competing with. I don't need you competing with guys that are getting offers from Wake Forest, right? If you are going to compete for guys who are going to places like Wake Forest, you're going to end up competing with Wake Forest, right? If you're going to get guys that are going to compete or you're competing offers with places like NC State, then yes, you're going to end up where you're competing with NC State. And I don't think that's where you want to be, right? And I don't think that's how you're going to get back to the top of the mountain if that's what you're after. So embrace it, lean into it. I understand it's not necessarily comfortable, as we talked about earlier in my response to the take from Cole and Diesel and the promo of theirs that I made. If you want to succeed, you have to embrace the modern world. And that's true of anything that you are talking about. Whether it's college football or, again, I told the story, yesterday or last Friday, that here's a reality. A lot of dudes in my industry left the industry when the industry shifted away from traditional radio and started moving into a more 24/7 and digital format. A lot of dudes left radio when they started saying, all right, you got to have social media, and you got to have Twitter, and you got to be on Instagram, and you got to do this, and you got to post videos, and you got to do that. And there were a lot of people who all they wanted to do was to show up, turn on a microphone, and start talking. You got to catch up. You got to catch up, or you get left behind. That's just those are the only two. There are no other options. You stay ahead of the game, or you get left behind. There is no third option there. So there you go. With all of that being said, there's my resolution for Clemson. For South Carolina, my resolution is this: continue to culture build. Continue to culture build. Continue to push the culture, because the culture, as I said and assumed it would be when I saw those first few weeks of Shane Bieber being Shane Bieber, the culture is what's going to push you ahead. The culture is what's going to create a world in which you thrive. A culture that makes people intrigued. A culture that gets guys to want to be there. And you got to stack the NIL, and you got to stack everything else on top of that as well. But continue to build that culture, because that culture is what's got you there. That culture is what's getting you recruits that are interested in playing for you. That culture is what has got your fan base riled up and selling for you, raising NIL through the Garnet Collective, all that. All of those things are because of the culture that you have been building. You have to lean into that. You have to demand that continues to be the methodology. Do not let people show up and start to try to convince you that you need to do it a different way. You are the definition of be you, and it'll work. And it is working. All right, that's going to do it for us. Listen, I hope that all of you have an absolutely spectacular New Year's Eve. Please be careful. Please be safe. If you're going to go out drinking tonight, remember, Uber's your friend. I don't need you I don't need one less listener on Thursday because one of y'all is sitting in a drunk tank somewhere. All right, go have your fun. I'm going to imbibe in a bit of champagne myself this evening. Big fan of the NYE beverages. But if you're going to drink, don't drive. Call an Uber, get a DD, whatever. I hope all of you, and I will wish you the same when we return on the 2nd, have a healthy, happy, prosperous, successful new year, no matter what that is defined as for you. I hope that you reach it. I appreciate all of you who helped us make 2024 the success that it has been. I appreciate in advance all of you that are going to help us make 2025 even bigger and even better as we roll into year number 5 of the Rob Brown Show here on the Fan Upstate. I thank all of you. You are all incredible people. I mean it when I say it, that I love you guys and you mean the world to me. Have a safe New Year's Eve, and I will see you back here on Jan 2 Thursday to talk some college football playoffs. Have a good one, everybody. See you back here Thursday on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and log off because now I got to run all the stuff that Lonzo normally does. Oof. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you all. Have a happy, safe, prosperous, healthy new year. I will see you in 2025. Goodbye.